The whole crowd is glued to the action, screaming at the top of their lungs for their favorite fighter. The guy got sent flying back, coughing his lungs out as his weapon slipped right out of his hands. He was totally wiped out and gasping for air while the whole crowd watched his every move. The guys he was fighting scrambled back to their feet and demanded to know what just happened. He flashed a wicked grin and told them he was actually the weakest guy in this world. 2 years ago, in the fortress city of Ramir, a massive crowd is gathered right in front of the temple altar. She tells them that they're going to score a special gift once they reach that altar. She looked right at Kai and asked if he was actually worried. This is Kai Heinemann, and he totally agreed that things were about to get wild. She asked if he was really doing okay, and he told her he stayed up all night just to get that gift ready. The girl starts spinning around, her mind racing as she wonders what kind of insane power she's finally going to get. He knows the big day is finally here, the moment he finally gets that legendary gift from the gods. Every single person gets a unique superpower called a gift from the gods the moment they turn 13. Powers come in all shapes and sizes, from being a pro with a sword to using crazy magic or turning trash into treasure, and whatever you get today is going to decide your entire future. The guy starts opening up about his childhood bestie, Renograth. She was always a total wild child who did her own thing. Back then, she was obsessed with the idea of becoming a... Kai told her flat out she wasn't becoming a princess, so Rena switched things up and asked what gift her friend was looking for. He told them he wanted something with swords, but he was totally lying. He's totally over the whole sword thing and wants nothing to do with them. But his grandpa, the legendary sword sage, has other plans. He's dead set on making our hero the next. But this guy wants something totally different, because his real dream is to get the power to be a legendary hunter just like his mom. Hunters travel the world to take down monsters in magical lands, and he's dying to become one and start his own epic adventure. Kai's convinced that even if he gets this sword, he's got absolutely zero talent to actually use it. His memory is pretty mid, and he's definitely not the strongest guy in the group, so Rena asks him if the cat was a gift. He shot back that a cat isn't a gift, and honestly, he thinks Roman should be the heir because the guy is actually super talented. Out of nowhere, everything just explodes into a super bright light. Rena asked what the deal was, but Kai just figured someone scored another super rare gift. His jaw dropped as he saw someone sprinting straight toward them. Layla comes sprinting toward the heroes, shouting their names at the top of her lungs as the group gives her a big welcome. Rena asks what's going on, and Kai is totally shocked she's already finished. She claims she's got the powers of an elite swordsman, which isn't shocking at all because this is Layla Helna, the hero's childhood friend. She's the only girl in Remora who can actually go toe-to-toe with Heinemann's sword skills, and get this, she's also his fiancée. Their parents totally forced this deal on them without asking, and the guy just watched the girls chat with a big smile on his face. Someone turned to Kai and asked if he was finally up next. It was Kim and Roman, and Kitch gave his buddy a huge wave and a grin. Roman marched straight up to the hero and asked him what his special gift was all about. The guy just grabs his shoulder and shoves him right out of the way. He tried to tell Layla about his new power, but she cut him off and said she already saw the whole thing. She said that with a totally blank face, like she had zero feelings. Roman bows to her and says he totally gets it. Then he shoots a side eye at his cousin while Kai just stands there looking completely lost. And then someone turns their attention to Layla. This guy claims he's one of the Holy Magic Knights and asks her to step aside so they can talk about her secret powers. Layla agreed, but she warned him that her talent wasn't anything special compared to Roman's. The guy explained that's just because she's a daughter of the Helma. The old guy invited her straight to their secret meeting spot in Ramur. He was totally blown away that they actually had a base in Ramur just for their negotiations. Roman nudged Layla and told her it was time to bounce. Then he turned around and gave Kai a look of pure disgust. The girl said bye to her squad, and as they waved back, Kitch turned his focus right toward Kai. He apologized for Roman, saying the guy was just super dizzy and totally out of it. He said he totally got it and told Kitch to keep up, so Kitch nodded and bolted straight toward Roman and Lyle. Rena hit up Kai to tell him the line was finally on the move. She walked right up to the table and touched the ball, leaving the priest totally shocked. Then he tells her the big news. Her special gift is actually a holy sword. Everyone's hyping it up because after the Spear King and the Guildmaster, we finally have the holy sword. This year is seriously on another level. A knight warns that these high gifts mean the demons are leveling up, and that can only mean their big attack is coming any second now. The priest overheard them and told them to stop freaking everyone out, so they quickly apologized. Finally, it was Kai's turn, and the priest told him to say his name and put his hand right on the crystal. The second he touched that crystal, he felt something insane. He had no clue what was happening. Suddenly, his whole body felt heavy as lead. It was like something was dragging him back. He remembered hearing that this power actually had some major drawbacks. Then the priest checked out the kid's power, looking from the crystal to the boy, and then told him his gift was the absolute weakest in the whole world. We're back at the Remore training grounds where Roman is mocking Kai during their big fight. And as the crowd cheers for Roman, someone shouts that Kai isn't just a loser, he's giving it everything he's got. But one tiny slip-up gives his cousin the perfect opening to strike. He smashed him right in the forehead, sending the guy flying backward. The dude totally blacked out, and when he finally woke up, his head was spinning like crazy until he remembered Roman was the one who knocked him cold. Layla rushed over to Kai and immediately asked if he was doing okay. He actually called out her name. She reaches out to help him off the ground. She sees exactly what smacked him right in the face. That's definitely gonna leave a massive bump, since she's leaning in way. Lila starts putting some ointment on the boy's forehead, but he just thanks her and says he's totally fine since he's used to this by now. Ever since he got stuck with the world's weakest power, stuff like this has basically become his new normal. This gift of weakness is making his power drop like crazy, and no matter how hard he trains, his strength just keeps disappearing. Out on the training grounds, he's actually worse than little kids who've never even practiced. His old friends won't even talk to him anymore. They totally avoid him during fights, and, back in Remore, barely anyone treats him the same anymore. And after becoming the weakest and losing his spot as the Heineman heir, his engagement to Layla was totally scrapped that same day. He's officially a nobody now, losing his title as the Heineman sword heir and his marriage to Layla, leaving Kai as just a total weakling at the bottom of the food chain. He tried to play it off like everything was totally fine, but she just looked at him with those sad eyes and whispered his name. She sat right next to him and asked when he was finally heading to the capital, and he told her it'd be soon because life in Remore was just getting way too tough for him. If he stays in the capital, he'll finally have a place where people actually treat him like a real human being for a while. Layla gives him a serious look before breaking into a smile and telling him he should just get a job there. But he says that even though his mom wants that, he's got other plans in mind. Welcome to the World Academy of Wybel, a place for people with zero powers and losers just like him, where he's hoping to find work while the girl just repeats the name Wybel back at. Kai offered to write her letters to help her chill out, but she suddenly jumped up and told him she didn't need any of that. She just flashed a smile, told him she had to go pack her stuff, and said her goodbyes. He watched her leave, stood up, and realized he needed to visit his grandpa too, but suddenly someone called his name. Roman stood there looking totally full of himself, claiming he was the real one with the Spear King's gift. There wasn't even a single trace left of Kai and Layla's engagement. He was part of the Heineman family too, even if he was just from a side branch. He told her that whether she stays or goes is 100% Layla's call. Roman asked where he got all that confidence from, especially since he actually picked the weakest guy there. Kai shot back that he and his cousin felt totally different, so there was no reason to stress, but then someone suddenly called out for Roman. It was that dude from the arena, and he told him to quit wasting time with the weaklings and hurry back so they could get back to training. This guy is totally fed up with wasting his time on such a loser, but he tells them he's already on his way. Roman finally warned Kai to stay away from Layla for good. Kai just saw her as a sister, though. He really wanted to clear the air and say he wasn't into her like that. Kai drops to his knees and thanks the girl for looking after him all this time. The old man apologized for his grandson being such a beat-up mess. The guy was totally lost and had no clue what he was talking about. He dropped the news that his engagement with Layla was officially over. It turns out he was actually getting kicked out of the place for. Kai said he didn't care one bit, and the old man just stared at his grandson in total shock. He explained that Layla was basically just his sister, and since his only goal was making it to the capital or Wabel, he wasn't actually upset one bit. The old man finally spoke up and called out his grandson's name. Then he just starts cracking up, leaving the kid totally lost while he jokes about finally getting old. Every now and then his vision just gets all blurry and clouded over. With eyes that honest, he knew there wouldn't be any trouble, so he let him head to the capital to do whatever he wanted, and the guy was super grateful. Kai thinks his real dream is heading to Weibel instead of inheriting the sword, but he might just be lying to himself. The old man told him that no matter what his gift was, he's still family, and this will always be his home. He was totally shocked, but then he straight up told them he didn't belong there and was never coming back. The old man starts chewing him out and tells her she better come back, so the hero just nods and says he's got it all covered. The old guy stood up and told them the talk was officially over. Grandpa told him to stay safe, so the kid just flashed a smile and told the old man to watch his back too. Left all alone in the room, the guy just hung his head. Straightening his clothes, the guy knew it was finally his moment to head to Wobble, the ultimate hunter hub, where he'd finally chase his dream and become a hunter himself. Kai walked right up to the sign. He was on the hunt for a carriage stand. He told everyone they needed to turn right there. Suddenly, he spots this super fancy carriage parked right there. He starts wondering what kind of big shot is actually inside a ride like that. But then, out of nowhere, someone calls out his name. This girl was just standing there, and she tells everyone her name is Rosemary. Kai realized the name matched the saint of the Amelia Kingdom, but he figured there was no way it was actually her. She bowed and told him she'd tag along to the capital, saying she was super hyped to finally meet him. She flashed a smile and told him he could just call her Rose. A girl was standing right behind her, and just as the guy noticed and tried to speak, her eyes suddenly went wide. In the blink of an eye, she's right in his face, scaring the life out of him while he just stares back in total shock. Anna started roasting him for being a weakling with no respect, but Rosemary yelled her name to shut her up. She told her to cut it out and explain that she chose to go with him because she was totally embarrassing herself and his grandfather, the legendary Saint Swordsman. Anna begged for forgiveness. Marie told her she needed to chill, and the guy was left completely speechless. Some guy creeps up behind the girl and says Anna only did it to show respect, but Rose just hisses at him. She smacked her cheeks to get herself hyped up, while the guy just stood there looking totally clueless. Rosemary whipped around to face Kai Heinemann. She's rushing him to get in the carriage already, and the poor guy looks totally crushed. He's honestly shocked that nobles like this are even real. Kai gave a silent shout-out to his grandpa for the ride, but he seriously wondered if he could survive a trip with these people. Everyone came to a stop, and our guy realized it was already evening, noticing how fast time flies in the capital while he stood in line for food. It was finally his turn to grab some food. The cook yelled at him to hurry up. He snapped out of his daze and quickly apologized. They hooked him up with some hot soup and a chunk of bread. The cook shouted that this was an order straight from Lord Frankton and then called for the next person. Kai remembers his grandpa saying he'd have to pay for the trip, so he figures there's some kind of special fee he's got to cover. While the kid is just walking by, some guy suddenly jams an elbow right into his side. Our hero slammed into the ground in total pain, and his tray went flying everywhere. He realized that even the bread was totally gross and spoiled. He was about to snap at him, but the guy suddenly cut him off and asked what he was even doing. The guy demands to know why he's being pushed. The kid tries to explain himself, but the man doesn't listen and just starts wailing on him with kicks. He kept whining about being hurt while he bullied the guy, and even though everyone saw it, they just looked away until someone finally yelled for him to knock it off. It was Anna, and the stranger totally recognized her. He asked what her big plan was. Was she actually trying to save his skin? She told him straight up she wasn't protecting him. He was just Mrs. Rose's special prize guest. Out of nowhere, a weird noise caught their attention and they all whipped their heads around. This guy with a massive sword was just standing there asking what all the noise was about. The creep bullying Kai hissed and took off, saying he was way too hungry to stay. He turned around to thank Anna, but she was already walking away. She glared back and snapped that she only saved him because of her orders, so he better get his butt back here fast. The girl marched right up to that guy. She says hi, he gives a quick nod, then he heads over to Kai to tell him the locals are starting drama again. This guy's name is Arnold, and he turns right toward Kai to say he's sorry. He bowed low and took the blame for his people being jerks, but as he kept apologizing, the other guy told him to just quit it. He says this kind of thing happens literally all the time. Back in the capital, everyone treats him like he was born to be a total loser. He's stuck with that reputation. Honestly, the guy was totally shocked by what he heard, but then he stood up tall and finally introduced himself. He offered to head back to his tent for a snack, but the guy felt like that was way too much. They headed over to the tent, and Arnold asked the chief if he'd heard any rumors. He claimed he was just following Lord Frankton's orders, but Arnold didn't want to hear a single word of it. He snatched him up by the collar and demanded he bring that food over right now. The guy was totally spooked and yelled at his workers to hurry up with Kai's food, while Arnold just sighed as he finally figured out what was going on. The guy's tray was literally overflowing with food, so Kai thanked Arnold, but Arnold just told him to chill because he totally earned it. He even pointed out that the kid is still growing and needs to eat way more to get big and strong. He finally made his move, and that grin on his face instantly turned into a cold, dark stare. He headed off to confront Lord Frankton, telling the kid to stop worrying because that guy was never going to bother him again. He was totally blown away that people like this were actually still around. 3 days pass in the Great Silka Forest, and check it out. The kid's tray is totally loaded with food again. Ever since that day, he felt like everyone was dumping way too much on him, so when he walked past someone, he totally flinched, expecting to get shoved again. But this time, nothing happened. He realized the bullies finally backed off, and he was totally blown away by how much power Arnold actually had. It's night, and the guy is laying in his tent, thinking hard about Kim and Rena. Rena is actually a legendary holy sword. And then there's Keech. He was still lost in his thoughts when Rosemary suddenly called out to him, so he let her come right in. She walked right in and knelt down right across from him. Kai had no clue why Rose was even showing up. Honestly, this was a total disaster waiting to happen. If anyone caught them together, the whole school would go back to hating his guts. He tried to ask what was going on, but she cut him off and begged for forgiveness, leaving him totally speechless. Rose said Aura told her all about the messed up stuff those knights did to him, but Kai told her to just let it go, leaving everyone wondering what actually went down. She told him she was tagging along to the capital after getting his grandpa's okay, and he just stood there scratching his head. He asked why she even wanted to go, and she just said it's because he's friends with Rena and Kitch. Kai was totally shocked that she actually knew both of them. Rose spills that the head court magician is her teacher, Kitch is her fellow student, and Rana is her total best friend. He figured she was the real deal since she was training under the head court wizard, and when he guessed that's how she knew all about him, she told him he was exactly right. She even said Rena won't shut up about him, so she definitely knows more about Kai than Kay, and Kai is 100% sure his best friend leaked every single cringy story from his past. It finally clicked why she tagged along. She just wanted to meet the person they were so tight with, so he asked if Rena was doing okay in the squad. She said she was doing awesome, and because she was so sweet, every single knight there liked her instantly. The hero flashed a genuine smile, looking totally stoked to hear that. He could tell she was way different from anyone else. He seriously couldn't help but worry about her. Rose just laughed. Suddenly, someone burst into the tent. It was Anna, and she was giving the guy the ultimate death stare. She just flashed a grin and told Mrs. Rose it was time for her to finally get some rest. Anna told him they'd talked enough and it was time for sleep, but her vibe was seriously starting to freak Kai out. Our hero thanked Rose for all the info, and she told him she had a blast talking to him. She said they'd catch up later, but right then, Anna was giving him. The girl said her goodbyes and he headed into the tent, just wanting to crash for the night. Arnold finally showed up and apologized for being late, so the hero asked him what took so long. He brushed it off like it was nothing and just said thanks, but the guy was totally clueless about what he even did to deserve it. The guy thanked him for checking on Rose after everything that went down, and since she finally opened up to him, he was honestly just so relieved. Kai told him to knock it off, saying he was the lucky one since a loser like him should be thanking her for even talking to him. But then the man suddenly said his name. Arnold admitted he wasn't a hero, but since he also got stuck with a trash gift, he totally felt his pain. The guy was totally blown away that his power was also trash, so he told him he'd only spill the secret to him. He told him to stay strong and promised that all his hard work would finally pay off. Meanwhile, two guys are standing way up in the mountains right in the middle of the Silk Forest. Suddenly, they spot Lord Frankton standing right there. Yeah, things were actually moving along, and they told him they were doing awesome. These elite Empire troops are totally locked and loaded, and with the Black Panthers and Ogres both on guard for the siege, absolutely nothing is getting past them. The guy said Lord Inns was leading the squad, and even though he'd heard some crazy rumors about them, he brushed off the gossip and asked where the princess was. The Lord snapped that Rose was talking to a total traitor, and while she's asleep, They're gonna cause a massive scene to tear her and the Knight Captain apart and finally kick off their... If Rose gets taken out, Prince Gilbert is next in line for the crown with the lords backing him up. The guy made it clear that as soldiers of the Empire, there was no way they'd ever turn their backs on the royal family. Franklin was super confused why Zignal called them shameless, so he basically told him he could fire back but didn't want to be rude and asked for a pass. The old man started screaming that they didn't know a single thing about them, calling it a total insult and demanding he take it back. But Zignal just reminded him they were still there to buy it. He told them they weren't buying her and just planned to marry her off, but the other guy snapped at Zignal to shut his mouth. Lord Enz says sorry for his buddy, explaining that Toll is just super cranky because they're in a foreign land. The old man saw everyone was super tense and said fighting was a waste of time, so as he walked away, he told them he was leaving everything in Lord Zignal's hands. The time is almost here to kick the princess out of the country for good. He's bringing the strongest fighters in the whole Glittinier Empire with him, since he's got two of the If this goes down, the whole noble world is basically toast. He's got to step up and save the high society life. The Franktons have been the king's loyal legends for ages. Staring up at the moon, the guy swore he'd always be loyal to Prince Gilbert. Before calling it a night, Kai decided to hit the bathroom real quick. He wandered away from the tent while panicking that someone might spot him, and just when he couldn't find a good place to hide, he finally saw a bush. He shows up and catches some guy chanting a crazy spell to summon someone. The two of them just locked eyes. Our hero was totally freaking out and had no clue what was happening, wondering why some random guy was just standing in the dark woods, so Kai asked if this stranger actually lived out here. The mysterious guy said there was zero info and that the whole thing was basically just a freak accident. Since the plan is still safe, he decides to have some fun, and with a tiny smirk, he suddenly stabs our hero out of nowhere. The stranger figured the kid was gonna bolt, so he told him to run for his life and then just snapped his fingers. Out of nowhere, a bunch of creepy demons just started showing up. Kai Heinemann took off at a full sprint, gasping for air. He was totally spiraling, wondering who that guy was and why he'd sick monsters on him or try to end his life when he hadn't even done anything to deserve it. He's gasping for air, his head is spinning, and his legs are literally creaking as he wonders why they're moving so slow right now, praying for this crazy heat to just let up for a second. Kai can hear them closing in right behind him. If they grab him now, it's game over. But he's got to make it to Wobble no matter what. He has to become... Our guy can't figure out why he's always the one getting into trouble. It's all because of that gift he's stuck with. Having the weakest power in the entire... The whole thing is just one big loop, and it's all because this gift keeps ruining everything. He's stuck wishing he was born with the gift of the sword, because then he could have stayed home to lead the Heinemann school, married Lila, and just lived a totally normal life. Is he seriously gonna die to monsters in the middle of nowhere? Man, he'd be way better off if he never even got that gift. The guy sprinted as fast as he could straight toward the waterfall. He realized he was totally cornered and wondered if this was really how it all ended for him. Out of nowhere, he spotted a weird glow coming from right inside the waterfall. He heard those monsters closing in and didn't waste a single second. He was totally out of options, so he just went for it and dove straight into the waterfall. Kai ended up in the middle of a total wasteland and just stood there, completely blown away by what he saw. He had no clue how this even happened, but he was just in the woods and now he's totally trapped with no way out. The guy just starts laughing and drops to his knees, and even though he's totally clueless, he's just glad he finally escaped those demons. He figured the cave was probably a trap, but then he spotted a building and headed over to chill in the shade. He stepped inside and his jaw completely dropped. They were standing right in front of a massive temple. Kai steps inside and spots a stone slab with a mysterious handprint carved right into it. He had no clue what this thing was, so he just reached out and touched it. I put my hand on the imprint and the whole slab just started glowing like crazy. Suddenly, the magic circle in the center of the room lit up, and the guy was totally lost about what just happened. A system window suddenly popped up, letting anyone with a divine rank gift through and starting the process to register Chi Heinemann as a player. He scanned through all the info and immediately thought there had to be some kind of huge mistake. A system screen pops up and welcomes him to this insane divine trial. Our guy is standing there totally clueless about what's even happening. They decide to just smash that continue button to get. The rules are finally out. You can't leave until you win the whole thing, and you won't even age a day because time in the real world is totally frozen. He scores an item box, a special assessment skill, speed boots, and a stick that never breaks. But he's totally shocked that there's actually a 20-can limit on his elixirs. If this is a game, then this building is definitely a dungeon. But usually, it takes a whole squad of hunters to clear a place like this, because there's no way you can survive here. Our guy couldn't believe what was happening right in front of him. He felt like the whole thing was honestly just a waste of time. He tried his best to stay cool and keep from... A box suddenly spawned right next to him and totally freaked him out. But inside were some super fast boots and a stick that literally never breaks. Kai was finally starting to figure out how this box actually worked. The boots suddenly popped out of her even faster, totally catching him off guard. But the second he thought about stashing them, they just vanished. They vanished into thin air and reappeared right in the storage room. Kai was so hyped to see that this was actually happening for real. A box like this would be a total treasure for the fourth gift. They hooked him up with the assessment skill, and he wasted no time testing it on those fast boots. These high-rank speed boots are perfect for ditching enemies, but they're totally useless if the fight breaks out on the owner's water. This kid just found out there's actually a way to make a fast getaway, and since he totally thought it was some kind of super rare treasure, he gets the bright idea to check out his own. Meet 15-year-old Kai Heinemann, a kid with bottom-tier stats like 3 health and 5 mana, because he got a gift from the weakest person alive. It starts with the worst. Our hero reads that he can actually crank up his heat powers if he meets the right conditions. He's totally confused and can't wrap his head around it. Could this really be This gift is a total mystery, so nobody's expecting anything big yet. Now, where's that elixir hiding? He decides to jump in and test his appraisal skill first. Our guy finally tracked down the source of the elixir, and while he expected a tiny bottle, the stuff is actually just flowing out like a fountain. Kai wanted to see if this thing was for real, so he sliced his palm and held it right under the elixir fountain. Everything healed up in a split second, and he thought it was the coolest thing ever. This kid was known as the weakest loser on the planet, but he just scored a legendary item box and an appraisal skill. He even stumbled upon a fountain that pumps out an endless supply of healing elixir. Now Kai's totally stacked with a special skill, a legit knife that beats a stick any day, an item box with a secret elixir, and some seriously fast boots. The guy says he's got the gear ready, and now they just need to make a break for it. Our hero finally hits the dungeon and feels a total chill, so he tries to stay calm and hugs the wall exactly like the books told him to. He hyped himself up to go for it, because this was the exact adventure he'd been dreaming about his whole life. The wall suddenly just ends, so he figures he's hit a crossroads and peeks out to see where to go next. A terrifying monster was already right there, just waiting for him. This massive bug just straight up bit his hand. Our hero starts screaming his head off because he has no clue what's going on and he's totally freaking out. That monster ripped into his arm and blood started spraying everywhere. Out of nowhere, the guy starts screaming his head off as he plummets into the darkness. In a total flash, he was standing right at the source of the elixir. He dunked his wrecked hands and his head right into it. He woke up totally lost and had no clue where he was. Then it hit him. His mom was calling out for him. He had to get to the capital no matter what. The guy finally snaps out of it and hauls himself out of the fountain, coughing his lungs out while trying to figure out where he is. He saw where the elixir was coming from and flashed back to that giant grasshopper ripping his arm off, which reminded him his right arm was still totally messed up. Kai stared at his hand in total shock because the wound had completely vanished, and he just started cracking up. Collapsing onto the stone floor, he started rambling about the Salixer's insane powers and how he barely made it away from that monster in one piece. No magic potion can fix his clothes, though. Everything he's wearing is shredded and soaked in his own blood. Right then, he realizes this definitely isn't a dream. Every single crazy. He stared at the entrance, realizing he'd have to dive back into that dungeon to escape, and while he got lucky this time, he knew his luck might run out next time. That monster just sank its teeth right into our hero's neck. His eyes snap open and he starts screaming while shielding himself, wondering why he's always stuck in this same mess. It was day 7, and our hero was just staring at those creepy-looking worms. He was totally losing it since he had absolutely nothing left, and after 7 whole days without a single bite of food, He's straight up about to starve to death. This poisonous beetle is insane because it melts in your stomach acid and kills anyone instantly, even a fetus, but it's actually loaded with nutrients. He looks at the worm and says it's full of nutrients, but it's actually got enough poison to take out a whole dragon. It's been 15 days of him living off nothing but that elixir, and even though it's barely doing anything, he decides to chug even more. Kai grabbed that poisonous beetle and realized he had to eat or die, because starving was way worse than hell, so he just gulped the bug down. He felt totally sick as his vision stained red, and he knew right then that this was the end. A notification popped up saying he earned weak poison resistance, and the guy was totally shocked he was even still alive. He just unlocked weak poison resistance by surviving a toxic snack, but to rank it up, he has to eat 100 monsters packed with 1,000 lethal doses of poison and live. Kai was hyped the elixir actually worked, but his body was totally trashed. He stood up with his head totally throbbing and started wandering toward where that elixir was coming from. As soon as he downed the elixir, his splitting headache just vanished. This stuff is seriously a lifesaver for him. He realized he actually felt totally full, like he'd just finished a huge... By day 100, he finally leveled up his weak poison resistance all the way to the middle rank. Kai was stoked that no matter how many gross bugs he swallowed, he wouldn't die. But you gotta wonder, is that actually a win? A year later, Kai's training is totally making his head spin, so he decides to just stick with his sword practice. 10 years have flown by, and just as Kai starts wondering how his friends are doing, he remembers the crazy truth. Time has actually been frozen this whole time. 40 years have passed, and now this guy is just standing there with a stick, ready to throw down. He announces that the guy they're facing today is actually Roman. The hero charges straight in, but Roman manages to knock the attack away. They're still throwing hands, and neither one is ready to quit. Just like that, Kai sent the stick flying right out of Roman's hands. Our hero says he's finally ready to take Roman down for good. Exhaling called an end to their imaginary duel for the day, and gave Roman a quick thanks. Kai leans against the wall, spinning his stick and bragging that he's got this since he even beat the teacher yesterday. And even though it wasn't a real fight, the system still. He's trying to unlock the basic sword control skill to slightly buff his blade, but since it requires 12 hours of practice every day for 40 years, he's just hoping his imaginary fights will get. Fast forward 800 years, and now this young hero is gearing up to take on the kingdom's legendary warriors. A swordsman who moves his blades like they're part of his... Kai decided he was actually going to throw down with the Glittenir Empire's legendary sword emperor, Ashban. 1,500 years later, our main guy is literally screaming at the legendary heroes that this is way too easy for him. He ordered Graham, Sherba, and Ashban to jump in and attack all at the same time. It's been 3,000 years since the game kicked off, and our hero is finally picking a fight with nothing but a basic stick in his hands. He totally wiped out every single enemy in his way. He's the only one left standing after that massive fight. These heroes have officially become even more powerful than the legendary Holy Sword. Right. Kai Hinamon is the absolute toughest enemy that imagination has ever faced. Our hero didn't waste a second and charged straight at himself. The real Kai is actually loving this because the fight is getting totally insane. The hero held up his stick and shouted that this wasn't even close to being enough. He swung hard at an enemy that wasn't even there. Then, in a total flash, he sliced his head clean off. Our hero shouted that Kai Heinemann was finally good to go. This guy just unlocked the absolute highest level of sword control. Our hero announces that the top-ranked Kai is officially finished, and now his sword skills are totally maxed out. He pulls out a box and starts snacking on some bugs like it's no big deal. This guy's poison absorption is literally at the max rank, and he thinks it's all because he survived on a diet of gross bugs. But hey, anything is better than nothing. He let out a long breath, realizing he'd been there way too long and it was finally time to head out. While trekking through the dungeon, the hero catches a familiar smell and a cold breeze that he just can't ignore. Ever since he started training with just a wooden stick, he couldn't stop thinking about coming back here, totally forgetting he used to think the whole thing was a joke. Standing right in front of him was the exact same monster that tried to take him out the first time. He realized this monster was still there and had actually been waiting in that exact spot for 3,000 years. Our hero stares down the beast, realizing it's at a level way higher than anything he's ever seen, and all he knows is its name. Grasshopper. Every single stat, from its health to its magic, is a total mystery. There's nothing more hype than a mystery opponent, so he smirks and says the name again while gripping his weapon, ready to jump that monster at any second. Our MC yells that this monster is going to show him the way and charges straight at him, making the grasshopper freak out and start screaming. The monster suddenly lunges at Kai and swings its massive paw, but it completely misses and slams into the ground right next to him. Kai just looks over at the crater and tells the beast You could tell that giant grasshopper was totally losing its cool. Things got even worse when Kai smacked it right in the face with his weapon. The monster didn't wait and swung its. Kai threw up his weapon to block the grasshopper's next strike and took 0 damage, but the monster just wouldn't stop, leaving Kai letting out a heavy breath. Our guy called him a total grasshopper for pulling a stunt like that, locking eyes with the beast while squeezing his weapon as hard as he could. Kai shuts his eyes and tells the grasshopper he feels bad about using this move, but he's going to stop holding back and show him everything he's got. Our hero fires off his sword control skill's first form, the Line of Death, while the monster just stands there totally clueless and watching his every move. That grasshopper stared straight ahead and let out a weird noise, but then his head suddenly split right in half. He lands a few more hits and drops to one knee, watching as the monster completely shatters into pieces. Kai finally stands up and flicks the blood off his blade with his enemy totally wrecked behind him, looking back with gross grasshopper guts still smeared on his cheek. He looked at the monster's remains all over the ground and felt totally bored as he turned to face his next opponent. Suddenly, a notification pops up showing Kai's strength, defense, smarts, and luck are all at 0.2, and he realizes that every fight is actually boosting his stats. After checking the info, he looked back at the monster's remains, but he wasn't even smiling. He actually looked totally disappointed. Kai knew one touch would turn them to dust, so he kept his sword ready while tackling a massive divine trial at the edge of the universe. Our guy looked around and felt like this place was way too empty, especially since every floor he found was even wider than the last one. Kai checked his system window and saw the poisonous beetles were almost wiped out, with only 12 of them left in the area. He looks over and spots a crazy swirling vortex, wondering if he can actually just lift it up right then and there. Kai stared at the floor with a totally blank face, said something absolutely wild, and then headed straight down to the monster. Our guy stared at the bodies of his enemies and wondered if he actually had to eat them, saying the whole idea was just super gross. He headed even deeper into the dungeon, but as soon as he stepped off those stairs, his jaw hit the floor in total shock. Right in front of him was this massive killer hornet with a giant stinger and metal armor on its head and shoulders, just hovering there in midair. A system alert pops up confirming he's dropped all the way to level -10, and now his first big trial begins with a fight against a deadly killer hornet. He smirked, realizing a massive boss was waiting every 10 levels, and he was totally hyped for this showdown. Kai shut his eyes and gripped his sword, feeling totally bored with that weak grasshopper, when suddenly the enemy he'd been waiting for finally showed up. He snaps his eyes open with a massive grin and says it's time to fight, but he gets cut off before he can even finish. Kai watched as the enemy right in front of him just vanished into thin air. He shouted in total shock. Then, a massive blast of wind whipped right past his face. He felt a massive surge of power as a blinding light exploded right behind him. Turns out that killer hornet absolutely shredded him, leaving a massive hole in his arm from his shoulder all the way down to his elbow. He looked down at his hand and saw it was a total disaster, with chunks of flesh hanging off and blood spraying everywhere. Kai was totally stunned at first, but then his face twisted into a hyped-up grin as he said it was all good and nothing bad had actually happened. Our guy says he's only hurt on one side and doesn't even care, thinking it's sick to fight an invisible enemy that's actually strong enough to kill him. Kai gripped his weapon tight, staring down the massive hornet as it glared back, before he finally decided to make the first move and charge. He saw the hornet literally vanishing into thin air, so he popped his skills again to narrowly dodge a massive direct hit. Kai admitted the monster was fast, but since it only attacked in a straight line, he asked if that was seriously all it could do. The MC tells him he has to freeze in place before making a move, and warns him not to even think about touching him. Right then, the hornet's body starts totally changing. That massive stinger actually begins sliding away from its own body. Kai wonders if this monster is hiding something crazy inside. Then the hornet lunges at our hero. Some weird liquid starts leaking out of him, and Kai just stands there watching the whole thing go down. He wondered if the device was for flying or if it was poison, but once he figured it out, he held his sword up to block the incoming attack. Kai shut his eyes to activate his third sword form, Moon Mirror, then suddenly snapped them wide open. This weird fluid from the Hornet system started oozing all over his weapon, completely skipping over the guy himself. Kai cracked a satisfied smirk, realizing that flying wouldn't actually help him out one bit. Then our guy yelled that the Hornet had it coming, swinging his sword to completely block those liquid blasts. He used his powers to blast that same liquid right back at the Hornet, and as it started melting its body, the monster let out a massive scream. That Hornet just kept making those weird noises, and he started wondering if that stuff really was poison. And if it was, why wasn't it hurting him? But suddenly, everything goes sideways, and Kai's jaw drops in total shock, because instead of the poison taking the Hornet down, the bug actually gets way bigger and stronger before letting out a... Kai wondered if that monster was still hanging in there. Even though it was just a bug, it actually seemed to have some pride. This was awesome news. Kai was totally hyped about it. Next, our guy goes back to his sword powers and busts out the second form, Speed Lightning. He used his skill to blast a massive hole straight through the Hornet, basically punching a giant gap right through its middle. Our MC shouts that he's a fighter too, promising to use his fastest sword strike while staring the guy down. Kai basically ordered him to stay down, which made sense because Hornet was totally wrecked and sliced into pieces just like the last guy. Suddenly, a system message pops up. The killer Hornet is dead, the first test is cleared, and he just scored a massive special advantage. The message left him totally stunned, making him wonder what these special perks actually were as he stared ahead with his eyes wide open. Suddenly, a massive box just spawned right in front of him. He wondered if he'd actually found a treasure chest. It was huge and had a big keyhole right on the front. He pops open the box and finds Flawnberg, a legendary fire sword that uses air magic to torch everything it slices, and it's literally the highest rank item you can get. He was totally shocked and wondered if this was actually a fire sword. But then it all made sense when flames started erupting from the blade. Kai strapped the sword to his gear, thinking it was fine since he already had his Unbreakable stick. But he honestly didn't look that hyped about getting this prize. Suddenly, he gets a wild idea. If he uses his weapon to fry those beetles, they'll actually be edible, and he's already picturing himself cooking them up. Kai promised he'd definitely give it another shot next time since he was totally cool with it. Then he headed straight for the exit to finally take on the next level. He eventually headed down to the next floor, but he was so beat that he had to lean against the wall just to keep from tripping down the stairs, and right in front of him, he saw a huge cloud of smoke coming straight from Paul. He takes a closer look and realizes the whole floor is covered in lava, which is exactly why it's so crazy hot in there. Kai stared at the photo in total shock at first, but then a huge grin hit his face as he realized this was actually super cool. Our hero calls this a real test, and he's actually doing pretty well, but he's totally stuck right now because he doesn't have fireproof shoes to keep moving forward. Kai remembered his claim about being fireproof and started kicking off his shoes to test it out, knowing he could always jump into the nearby return vortex if things got sketchy. He pops open his item box to grab his speed boots and yanks his pants up super high so they don't get scorched during the lava test. The moment Kai stashed his shoes, he decided to test the lava by walking right up and planting his bare foot on it, making it hiss and sizzle like it was frying his skin. He shut his eyes to focus his senses, but suddenly he's yanking his leg up and screaming because his foot is burning hot and turning bright red. Kai scrambled back to a safe distance, realizing he was totally overwhelmed, and reached for his box to grab that elixir before it was game over. After chugging the elixir, he stepped back onto the lava and was hyped to see he could last 10 whole seconds, all while keeping another dose ready just in case things went south. Suddenly, a system screen pops up saying he discovered a fire resistance skill that makes him immune to heat, which requires touching something burning 50 times to unlock. Our guy was totally hyped about how things were going, knowing he could definitely survive until all that fire was sucked up, especially since he had infinite time and elixir to work with. And he kept telling himself that once he finished this, he'd totally breeze through the whole place in one shot. He started absolutely crushing levels, picking up fire absorption and underwater breathing, and even though the light zone was blinding him, he shot up from level 11 all the way to level 300. Once he hit level 300, He unlocked a massive list of skills like absorbing heat and ice, blocking dust, mastering traps, and even breathing underwater. You could tell our guy was totally done with this mess, but as he checked his system screen, he realized he'd finally unlocked every single survival skill. He rips off his glove, wipes the sweat from his face, and after catching his breath, he says he's got to keep moving. Suddenly, he realized he didn't even know what kind of glove he was holding, only to find out it actually belonged to the Thunder Beast, and he was using it to dry himself off instead of a towel. After a bit, he ends up in a weird room with some mystery liquid dripping nearby, and even though there aren't any stairs, the exit is wide open. He looks through and spots a massive arena in the distance where the King of Thunder Tigers is waiting, looking absolutely huge with lightning sparking all over his body as he lets out a terrifying roar. Our hero figured this was the final test of the upper levels, but then a voice announced that the fight against the Thunder Tiger King was starting right now, even though he was already totally exhausted. The monster lunged straight at Kai, its claws almost ripping his throat out, but he whipped out his sword and sliced that tiger into tiny pieces like it was total child's play. He shut his eyes and complained about all the noise, then looked at the tiger and told it that it smelled like a total weakling, knowing this fight was going to be over in a heartbeat. Kai hears a voice shout that the Thunder Tiger King is finished, but then it starts panicking and yelling for everyone to wait, making him wonder what's actually happening to that voice. He looks down and spots a pond filled with these massive creatures that look just like giant fish. Suddenly, the system told him he was getting some insane special perks. Kai couldn't stop staring at the enemies he was about to face. He thought about diving right into the fight, and he didn't even hesitate before diving headfirst into the pond, making the system totally freak out and ask what he was doing. By then, our guy was already deep underwater, surrounded by these massive fish that looked totally bizarre. While he's in the water, this massive fish suddenly appears covered in these creepy holes that don't even make sense, and it's even got two other totally bizarre-looking fish swimming right. Our hero looks over and sees a fish charging straight at him with its mouth wide open, showing off rows of massive teeth as it tries to gobble him up right then and there. The fish was closing in fast, and seeing those razor-sharp teeth made him lose all hope right before everything went totally black. Finally, our guy breaks the surface and catches his breath, looking around at all the dead fish floating nearby and admitting that was one seriously epic battle. Kai looked at the enemies surrounding him and realized since this was his first underwater battle, he'd have to give it everything he had. He looked up and wondered if he was actually ready for this, realizing it was the level's first big challenge and, wow, it was way higher than he thought. The system announced the top floor trials were finally over because he totally wrecked the Thunder Tiger King, unlocking a super rare condition and massive rewards that were so insane the system actually started glitching and stuttering. Our MC asks if he's doing all right since he's stumbling so much, but the voice just tells him to shut up and asks why he's even bothering him. Pi completely ignored him, just staring ahead and saying these fish drop super rare chests. He didn't know which was which, so he just grabbed the smallest one and opened it up right then and there. He cracked it open to find a beginner's magic book and shouted out in shock that he actually got one. Our guy wondered if he could actually use magic with his trash gift, but after thinking it over, he just tossed the book into his storage. He spots another sealed chest right in front of him and heads over to crack it open and see what's inside. Inside the chest was a massive sword with a ribbon tied near its super weird-looking handle. It turned out to be a legendary lightning sword from another world that once killed the god of thunder, and it's so sharp it can actually slice through lightning, leaving Kai totally speechless at his insane. The second he grabbed the sword, it started molding itself to his grip, and he realized this thing was definitely not normal. He leaned in for a better look and realized the sword's handle was actually made of wood, which totally caught him by surprise. He slid his sword back into its sheath, flashed a huge smirk, and started giggling like a total maniac. Kai looked super serious and said this was a whole new feeling, like he just knew they were going to be partners. He realized 7,612 years had passed since the game started, and as he stared into the distance, everything finally clicked. He stared up at a massive dragon's head and paw, realizing he'd finally crossed into the dragon zone. He was super hyped to finally test this blade out, so he started pulling it from its sheath right away. Right now, he's way down on level 350 in a room so massive you can't even see the ceiling, and standing right in front of him is a dragon with a super weird body. Our guy looks at the dragon and thinks it's actually pretty small for its kind, but the beast just lifts its head and acts like he's not even there. Kai felt the heavy weight of those eyes staring him down, and he realized this beast looked nothing like a normal dragon. The 8th test is finally starting, and the goal is to take down the massive golden dragon, Fafnir. The system voice actually talks to the dragon and tells it to unleash its full power. Kai. Our guy was super annoyed that he was actually giving advice to a dragon, so he suddenly whipped out his sword and shouted that his blood was boiling. Kai stood his ground, stared right at the dragon, and straight up challenged him to a fight. Just then, the dragon strikes and sends him flying back a huge distance, leaving him in a cloud of smoke with his clothes totally wrecked. Our hero is down on one knee, leaning on his sword just to stay upright, and even though he's completely covered in blood, he actually lets out a little laugh. But a second later, his quiet chuckles turned into a total laughing fit as he threw his head back and just started howling. Blood sprays out of his mouth, he goes dead silent, and then he just falls flat on his back. He tumbled down the stairs and slammed onto the floor. There was blood smeared all over the ground where he fell. He just lay there knowing it was over. He had been totally wrecked. Even though his attacks were totally useless, he just kept laughing as he set his sights on taking down that dragon. He finally snaps out of it and realizes he's back on level 1, standing right in the middle of some water. He looked around and saw the bleeding had stopped, but he still wasn't used to the crazy way his body was literally putting itself back together. Then he just leaned his head back against the edge, closed his eyes, and let out a long breath, finally accepting everything that had happened. Kai realized his physical attacks were totally useless, and if he couldn't use his sword, he had no clue how to take down a dragon without using brute force. Our hero was drawing a total blank, just lying there with his eyes shut like he'd passed out, until he finally realized he should probably just use magic. Kai snaps his eyes open and immediately digs through his storage, hoping that magic book he got as a reward has the answer. He searched his item box for the magic book, and it popped up right when he needed it. He hopped online to find some answers, and even though the book was packed with info, he was just hyped that it was actually made for beginners. If you want magic, you gotta make a deal with the Book of Magic, which beams every spell straight into your brain so you don't even have to read it. But don't you dare. Our hero was totally stressed because his own gift was stopping him from making a contract, so he couldn't learn magic the normal way, and felt like a total failure. Kai figured he had nothing better to do, so he just kept the elixir and started reading since he wasn't in any rush at all. Right then, he decided to chug the elixir to get back to full strength, taking some massive gulps. He chugged the whole thing and wiped his mouth with his hand. Suddenly, something popped up out of thin air right in front of him. He snapped his head toward it instantly. He finally got a skill that lets him resist magic poisoning. He realized those painful headaches and that gross nausea were all caused by the magic. This new power makes reading magic books way easier, even though, since things were finally chilling out, he figured he'd start feeling better and went right back to grinding through that book. Kai sat on the ground, thinking about how a crazy 7,673 years had passed since the game started, and he was totally buried in a mountain of books while clutching one in his hands. He covered his mouth as it finally clicked that after 60 years, he was actually starting to get how magic works, and he was super hyped about it. He figured out magic is split into normal and special types, and basically, if it's not a basic or high-level spell, it's considered special. He wasn't born with magic, and since you need natural talent to even link up with the Book of Magic, he was totally locked out of its power. Since he doesn't have a contract, he can't use regular elements, but he can still use raw magic by flooding his body or weapons with pure energy to pull off some insane moves. He realized he didn't need to be born a genius to use magic, and knowing it was finally within his reach made him start grinning like crazy. Kai shouted that this was awesome because he could finally level up, and that hype gave him the energy to keep pushing forward. It's been 8,167 years since the game started, and our hero thought he was finally about to wake up. He asked everyone to listen up and shared a crazy fact he found while digging through some medical books. Your body is basically just a massive pile of cells, and you can actually blast magic into the center of every single one of them. By using long-range attacks, he can actually pull off that crazy pseudo-station magic, and right now, energy is literally surging straight up from his hand. The piece was totally over now that he was back from the dead, and when the guy turned around, he saw a massive monster standing right behind him. He smirked and thanked the monsters for their slow recharge, then apologized because his enemy was now just another toy for him to break. The dragon definitely heard him because it charged up and blasted a massive wave of fire, but our guy just held up his hand to block the whole thing. This super calm guy says he's about to use Vajra, an insane magic power that buffs his body to the max. He popped his skill and the monster's massive attack just went right through him without leaving a single scratch. He looked at his hand and realized the monster's breath wasn't even hurting him anymore, so he didn't need to waste his super regeneration. This was awesome news, so he kept moving and pulled out his sword. It turns out it's a literal fire sword, so he grabs it and triggers his weapon enhancement skill. He fused magic and steel down to the very atoms, and now that the sword is basically pure magic, it's ready to strike. He told the monster he felt kind of bad for it right before unleashing his strongest sword strike, even though the beast probably didn't understand a word he said. Then he swings his sword and shouts that the fight is finally on, and he's totally ready to go all out. Our hero slams his sword into the dragon, slicing half its head clean off and leaving the monster totally wrecked. After landing the hit, he lowered his blade and looked up at his enemy, his face switching from total shock to pure sadness. Kai thought the monster's top half just straight up evaporated, and now even Fafnir didn't stand a chance against him. He uses a research magic called Divine Eye, which lets him track every single person and object for 500 miles. Our MC spotted 2 new people appearing behind the dungeon wall, but they were way weaker than the last person he dealt with. Kai figured these guys weren't worth wasting his magic on, so he decided to switch things up, making 3 stones appear in his hand and launching one straight into the air. It's been 11,065 years since the game started, and our hero has been wrecking enemies non-stop this whole time. Ed wipes the floor with his opponent again, and the system announces he's finally mastered the skill of throwing Kairu like a total pro. He figured out that sniping from a distance was the ultimate strategy, and just like that, he officially earned the epic title of Dragon Slayer. He'd done everything he possibly could, so now he was leaving it all to fate as he headed for the exit. Meet Kai Heinemann, a 15-year-old with a frozen age and a divine rank that's actually the weakest in the world, but with 9,000 HP, our hero was finally strong enough to go toe-to-toe with the dragon that wrecked him before. The system voice even called him out for being totally hopeless. But Fafnir didn't. He asks if he's for real, and the voice just announces that the 8th trial to slay the golden dragon Fafnir is starting all over again. Kai said he absolutely hated those eyes, but he'd been waiting forever to see them again and finally have this massive showdown. His eyes are totally bloodshot, and he says he wants to rip his throat open just to see the fresh blood. This guy says his love has lasted for 3,500 years, falling for her every single day until he practically drowned in his feelings. The MC looked totally unhinged as he whipped out his blade and took a massive swing at the guy. This guy actually decided to smash one of the barriers, and even the dragon didn't see that coming. His punch smashed a massive hole in the wall, looking like a bulldozer just plowed right through it. Right then, the wall started fusing back together, and our hero just started laughing his head off. Kai looked the dragon right in the eye and told him to watch closely, saying this move was just for him as he summoned his insane magic weapon. He asked if he could feel his heart racing, since he'd been waiting 3,500 years just to see those crystal eyes and glowing golden scales again. He was so desperate for love that he spent every second dreaming about their meeting, nearly losing his mind while constantly calling out for the dragon Fafnir. Kai told him he wanted to see his blood spill and hear him scream in total despair while his dragon guts hit the floor and he burned in pure pain. Our guy turns to the dragon and tells him it's go time, saying he's ready to settle this in a fair fight. Then, in a move that shocked everyone, the dragon Fafnir actually bowed his head and told our hero he surrendered. The guy was totally lost at first, just standing there frozen as his crazy act fell apart, and he asked what was going on, while even the system voice was freaking out. Our hero starts losing it, yelling that there's no way this is real since he hasn't even touched his sword, telling the dragon to quit joking before a voice agrees and says, "Faf." Kai kept hyping up the fight between his sword and the dragon's horns, and even though the dragon started crying and begging to stop, Kai told him it was going down whether he liked it or not. This guy spent 3,500 years mastering magic just to win, but while the dragon was busy complaining, a system window suddenly flashed right in front of him. A voice boomed that the 8th trial to slay the golden dragon was finally over. Kai screamed at him to stay strong and not give up. This time he had a huge advantage since the enemy. Our MC starts complaining that they're doing it all wrong and asks who this guy is, but the dude just fires back and asks who he is. The system announced that since he won, he'd get a massive advantage, even though Kai was sure he was totally finished. A system window pops up showing Fafnir standing there looking for a buddy, and it asks him if he wants to be friends with the massive dragon. While our hero is staring out the window, he spots a dragon right next to him crying its eyes out, but as soon as he looks over, the dragon instantly locks in and gets super serious. Kai looked the dragon up and down and asked if it actually wanted to be friends, but the beast definitely didn't look like it was down for that. He figured there was no way a monster that big could follow him, but right then, the dragon started shaking like crazy. Kai realized that since this was a dungeon, maybe his new buddy could actually shapeshift to tag along with him. Our main guy realized that this dragon could actually talk just like a human. He's so relieved to hear a girl's worried voice that he doesn't even care if he's going crazy, because after 10,000 years of total silence, this feels like a lucky break. When asked if he wanted to be friends with the dragon, our MC said yes, and right then, the massive beast started transforming and shrinking until he was totally tiny. But that wasn't even the craziest part. Kai caught a glimpse of the dragon's shadow through the thick smoke. Right then, the monster started to transform. It got smaller, and, as the smoke clears, a little girl pops up with her arms wide open, calling him master, and introducing herself as Fafnir with a huge smile. Our guy stared at the smiling girl in total shock and asked why the dragon was way too tiny. He threw on his cloak, snapped on his gloves, and buckled his belt, getting totally geared up to keep moving forward. He checked himself out and realized he looked totally epic, especially since this gear was his reward for taking down Fafnir, rocking a full set of legendary dragon armor with a cloak. His clothes were basically shredded, so he thanked her for the new fit and thought she was a total legend. Suddenly, someone calls him master. It's Fafnir, and she's asking if she can toss out some trash that's actually his old clothes, but Kai reminds her they're a team now and mentions his infinite storage, but she jokes he'll never get those items back, and he just says he totally can. He pops open his system window and starts marking his gear as favorites. Fafnir watches over his shoulder to make sure he doesn't accidentally trash anything. She can totally see the huge grin. Once Kai finished his list, he told the girl they had to head back to the first floor to find something, and she was totally hyped to go. They headed back up to level 1. It was right on the surface. The whole place was totally empty. All they saw was one tiny little house sitting there. He told her he crafted it from dungeon loot, and then asked if she thought it was as awesome as he did. Fafnir stood there staring at the house in total shock. Her jaw was on the floor and her eyes were wide. All she could do was let out a tiny gasp. Kai told her to. Next, he showed her the meat he got from a level 290 thunder cow to see what she thought, and her jaw hit the floor all over again. Fafnir's face twisted in total disgust as she gagged at how old the meat was, but the guy just snapped back that she looks pretty while having a seriously nasty mouth. He tells her how he got his hands on this legendary weapon, the ancient flaming sword Flanberg, and pulls it out to show her. The guy admitted this move was always useless in a fight, but he finally found a way to use it as his whole sword burst into flames, and Kai looked totally locked in as he jumped into action. He whipped the ball around and triggered his Kair-Yu cooking skill, using a secret sword move to summon a massive flame that left Fafnir totally stunned once again. A bit later, a huge slab of crispy fried meat hit the plate, and he turned to the girl to tell her it was finally time to dig in. He serves her the plate like a total pro, saying he'd spend 10 whole years just on that crust, and Fafnir loses it, shouting that he's the ultimate master. Leva was already drooling and asked if she could dig in, so the guy told her to go for it and handed her a treat. He knew salt was his only seasoning, so he had to stay focused. Levels 170 to 180 are completely underwater, and the water changes depending on the monsters living there. Fafnir wasn't even listening to him. She just snatched up a piece of meat and started devouring it like a total beast. Kai's yelling at her to chill because she's literally eating him instead of the meat, but she just mumbles that he's delicious too, so he forces her to spit his hand out so he can actually finish making dinner. The girl was surrounded by massive piles of meat, holding a piece in each hand while already happily stuffing a third one into her mouth. She took a bite of all 3 pieces and said they were delicious, so our MC told her he was glad she liked them, but mentioned he knew you're supposed to drink the elixir. Our hero kept spying on the girl while devouring some meat, and seeing her egg get all messy and delicious made him close his eyes with a satisfied little smirk. Suddenly, he gets a wild idea and hands her a fork with a huge grin, but she just stares at him like he's totally lost his mind. Fafnir carefully picks up her fork, copies exactly how Kai uses his, and stabs a piece of meat for a bite. And even though Kai thinks his cooking is just basic, for her, it's the best meal she's had in 10,000 years. He'd been missing a piece of himself for years, but suddenly everything just clicked back into place, and all that stress and obsession that ruled his life vanished like shadows in the light. He was itching to fight that golden dragon, but seeing her sweet, shy smile made all his anger just melt away. He wonders out loud if this is one of the 4 privileges, and when she asks what he means, he just tells her they're both winning now, leaving her totally confused. Our main guy and the girl are stuck 400 levels deep underground, and get this. It's been a massive 13,000 years since the game even began. Right in front of them stood this massive monster with 1 eye, tiny horns on its face, huge tusks, and even a trunk. Fafnir points out the monster's massive nose, and the other guy says he's read about this thing being just like an elephant, which makes the beast start making some seriously creepy noises. Wait, the monster can actually talk, and he even gives our hero props for finally getting this strong. The monster calls himself Jiromakola and claims he's the most evil demon alive, and man, this guy is seriously full of himself. He turns to the girl and tells her this guy claims to be the most evil demon ever, asking what she thinks while she keeps her eyes locked right on the villain. She turns to the guy and starts digging through her bag, and when he asks if she really wants a steak, she just tells him no, and that she'll finish the job later. She kept digging through her bag with a super intense look until she finally pulled out exactly what she needed. She slipped on a powerful-looking glove and suddenly looked like she was out for blood, telling the monster he was finished before Kai stepped in to stop her. He tells her she sounds super scary and familiar, but Fafnir jumps in and says she's probably just like him. He decided to act like a parent and show her how it's done, so he shut his eyes and told her to watch him closely. He whipped around to face the monster, thrusting a sharp stake forward and telling him that his way of life was totally messed up. Looking totally bored, the guy told him to just give up now if he wanted to walk away without a fight. He kept telling the guy to give up, then turned to the girl and said, "It should be something like this," while the monster's single eye stared him down in total shock. He said he didn't want to kill him, claiming he'd forgive anyone from a tiny bug to a massive dragon as long as they didn't attack, while everyone else just wondered who this guy thought he was. The monster was totally fuming after what our guy said, screaming his head off but getting so worked up he couldn't even form a real sentence. The monster got right in his face and called him a total brat, bragging that he serves Mara, the ultimate ruler of the entire world. He's the first person Mara has ever liked, and he's basically guaranteed to take the creator's place among the gods. Kai is just a low-tier god who shouldn't even be opening his mouth to someone like him, so how does he have the nerve to actually demand anything? As Mara's strongest, he got so mad at those words that he tossed a steak skewer into the air, and suddenly, the whole room was blinded by a massive flash of light. He pulls out his sword, shuts his eyes, and tells the monster it talks way too much, which really gets under its skin. Our MC tells the monster that if it had just said no, there'd at least be some bones left. But Fafnir tells him to shut up and realizes he totally failed at raising him. She flashed a massive smile, her face turning bright red as she told him she never doubted him for a second. He tries to explain that this isn't how people should act, but she shuts him down and asks if that's really how you're supposed to kill, so he tries to talk his way. Kai figured this girl was just out for blood, but the second she said she was hungry, he offered to grill up some meat and felt like the worst dad ever. Next, he pulls out the legendary Book of Victories. It's packed with the souls of monsters defeated in the divine trials. This lets him bring them back to life whenever he needs. Our guy sees a legendary item drop from the chest and wonders if that monster was actually a boss, right as the system window pops up again. Ire Makala's soul and asked him if he wanted to be officially cataloged. Wait, it stated that implies a notification or a screen. A message popped up. Both of them stared at the message, totally locked in. Our MC was really weighing his options and thinking it over. Fafnir was ready to smash that yes button right then and there. Kai got super serious and told her to stop clicking everything, but she insisted she just had to press those buttons, so he finally gave her the green light and she went for it. Suddenly, the book flies right out of his hands and starts glowing, leaving him gasping in surprise while even Fafnir looks totally stunned. Just like that, the book flipped open to a page showing the monster they just took down, along with all its crazy stats and info. Our hero finally gets how it works, and that's exactly how those monsters were brought in. But he still had to ask if he could really summon them before deciding this book is actually insane. He decided to hit the first level again to add everyone to his catalog, so he told the girl to head back while he checked something out. But she just complained about being hungry, making... A little while later, they're back on the surface at level 1, and while our guy is chilling by the house flipping through a book, the girl asks what's up, so he tells her he's finally gonna summon that Gwirumi Kalu they just caught. Fafnir repeated the name and asked if it was the same big-nosed monster he dealt with before, right as a genius idea popped into her head. She screamed that her master was the one who took this guy out, but he quickly corrected her, saying ladies shouldn't use words like killed. And even though she nodded along, he seriously doubted she actually understood him. Then, he reached out his hand and summoned the monster from the book in Kai Heinemann's name, shouting for Jiromeko to finally break free. A tiny spot of light appeared on the ground right in front of them, growing bigger and bigger until it turned into a massive glowing ball. A bit later they found another dead monster, but this time it didn't even look that creepy. Jiromeko looked up and scanned the area before staring right at our hero, asking what was going on and where he was since he didn't recognize this place at all. Kai's eyes popped as he shouted that the guy actually showed up, but Fafnir just mocked his long nose while the monster asked if he was seriously the brand new god. Jiromeko realized he was basically a servant now, and our MC confirmed it, saying he'd summoned his soul from the book to work for him. But the monster totally rejected it and asked what kind of crazy plan he had. He closed his eyes and scratched his head with a big sigh, saying the monster still wasn't listening, right before a totally unbreakable stick spawned in his hand. Our hero's face twisted with pure rage as he told Jiromeko he was going to hunt him down, saying that maybe after dying 10,000 more times, he'd finally... It's been 51,000 years since this game first kicked off. Jiromeko was just chilling on the ground outside his house, fast asleep. He was making some super weird noises until our hero stands up and scratches his head with a casual, "Hey," and the monster actually says he gets it, wishes him a good morning back, and hits him with a sharp salute. He suddenly screams that the monster is being way too slow, and the beast is so terrified it actually starts shaking. He cursed and yelled that he'd already told him to speak up sooner, and the monster actually dropped to its knees to beg for forgiveness for messing up. Kai asks what's wrong with him, and Jiromeko says he's just a trash beetle on the ground, so when Kai asks if those bugs are better than him, he says he's actually the most hopeless beetle of them all. Right then, Fafnir stepped out onto the porch, let out a massive yawn and a stretch, and wished everyone a good morning. The monster gave her another salute and told her he was just a garbage beetle. Our hero goes off on him for that earlier lecture about how to talk around girls, making the monster totally lose it and start begging for mercy all over again. Fafnir finally snaps out of it, rubs her head and says good morning, but then she immediately calls the owner a trash beetle, making him blow a fuse because now she's using that insult too. The girl admits she's a trash bug too. Kai screams at Jiromeko for turning them all into insects, and the monster just keeps begging for forgiveness. The MC handed out a brutal punishment of 500,000 push-ups and told him to get moving, so he dropped down and started hitting them out immediately. An hour later, Jiromeko is totally wiped out, dripping with sweat and gasping for air. The monster finished the job, so our guy gave him some props and said it was time to head underground to keep filling up that book. Kai reached out his hand to test that thing he found yesterday, and when a shocked Jiromeko asked if it was another power-up, Kai told him it definitely wasn't. He explains those are the divine seal gloves that let him turn down his power whenever he wants, and the monster repeats it back, totally stunned, asking if he heard that right. Kai explained that the secret to getting stronger is pushing yourself to the absolute limit and barely surviving. But since losing means you're dead, He and the girl just laughed while the monster realized this guy was totally insane. Kai told Gear Michelle to scrub the house and get some food ready before he got back, and Michelle was totally down. Kai also warned him that Fafnir eats like a beast. It's been 65,000 years since the game first kicked off, and now our hero and his buddy Fafnir are diving all the way down to underground level 700. Kai looked totally exhausted as he pointed out there were no trees or rocks around, just a blood-red sky, and when he said this level was completely empty, the girl just stared up and repeated every single word back to him. Out of nowhere, our hero spots something moving way off in the distance. He realizes this whole place is a total death trap that's hitting 200 degrees. Staying here for even May. A massive bird covered in flames suddenly lands right in front of them. It speaks up, noting that some new faces have finally shown up. It can't believe someone actually managed to reach this level. Our hero knew he was in deep trouble because those gloves nerfed his skills, making it impossible to see how strong the enemy actually was, and he was totally fuming about it. Kai used to only find out a rank when he met someone face to face. He started worrying if this guy could actually end him, and honestly, he didn't have a clear answer. Since he can't see the enemy, he figures they must be a beast and considers taking off his gloves, but he doesn't want to waste the XP if they're actually just a weakling. He looked down at her and asked for her take on the situation, and Fafnir didn't even blink as she told him exactly what was on her mind. She started drooling with a hungry look in her eyes, calling their enemy a snack, and the MC knew exactly what she meant. He assumed she liked chicken, but when she told him it had to be well done, he clarified he wasn't talking about food, he was talking about her power. Our hero puts his hands on his hips and asks Fafnir why she's eating so much for a lady, but she just gets annoyed and says the food is way too delicious while the bird stands there completely lost. He tells her that no matter how you look at it, their opponent is literally just a giant bird, and she's totally shocked when she realizes they're talking about her. She got super annoyed and snapped at Kai for calling her a giant, so he spun around all nervous and tried to explain she totally got it wrong. Our MC says that's just how he rolls, but when he asks about the ingredient, the bird plays dumb, which is a total insult to the legendary Phoenix. That bird screamed she'd never forgive him for disrespecting Kamishima Phoenix, getting so angry that she burst into flames and took off into the sky. Right then, Fafnir whipped out her gear, showing off some heavy armored gloves as she ordered that dragon iron armor to suit her up. She tells him she'll handle everything, but he calls her out because he knows she just wants to eat that phoenix. Suddenly, a voice asks if this is really happening again and announces that the trial to take down the phoenix is finally starting. It's been forever since he last heard that voice, and Phoenix zoomed into the sky and blasted fireballs at the duo as she told them to beg for mercy before his hellfire burned them to a crisp. As the flames closed in, Fafnir just held up her gauntlet and sucked the fire right in, telling Phoenix she totally underestimated her armor before unleashing her earth and heaven hum skill. Suddenly, she gets launched way up into the sky, flipping upside down with her feet in the air and her eyes locked on her enemy, screaming some crazy chant at Phoenix in a language nobody knows. She flipped around midair, thrust her hand forward, and unleashed her lion strike with a look that showed she was totally locked in. That bird got absolutely wrecked in one shot and slammed onto its back, while Fafnir put all her power into her swings, screaming that she was going to keep pummeling Phoenix over and over again. It only took a second for her to pull it off, landing one final strike that sliced the bird right in half. After she finally cools off, she leaves the enemy alone and starts floating down from the sky toward the ground. She slammed into the ground with a massive thud. She stuck her gloved hand out to break the fall. Smoke exploded everywhere as the floor literally shattered from the impact. Our hero claps his hands and tells her she did an amazing job. She finally nailed every single technique name without messing up once. You can tell he's super hyped and proud of. Fafnir stared at him with total excitement as she started drooling again. Then she turned to the owner and told him to get the food ready. He closed his eyes, nodded along, and said it was time to take off as his sword suddenly appeared in his hand, and he spun around to see a massive light glowing behind him. He rounds the corner and tells her the phoenix just lit up out of nowhere, but before she can even finish saying it's healing, Kai jumps in and says the bird is actually putting its body back together. Our MC was losing his mind that the phoenix was coming back, but the girl just said she killed it properly, even though the bird was totally turning back to normal right in front of them. Just a few seconds later, Phoenix was totally back to normal, and with her eyes glowing, she basically said, "My bad," but told them she can't be killed because she'll just keep coming back millions of times. Fafnir was ready to take down that bird again, but the MC cut her off with a wild smirk and started laughing. He realized the Phoenix is basically immortal, so he accepted his fate, decided drawing his blade was his only move, and unsheathed it while a voice complained about how annoying he was being. He says he hasn't been this hyped in forever, so now he's gonna see if this bird is actually unkillable. This guy threatened to rip out his guts while he was still breathing and chop him into tiny bits, even his pinky nail, all while looking like a total psycho. He's gonna wreck everything and turn it all into dust. He's just waiting to see how much longer Phoenix can even stay alive. But right then, a voice snaps him back to reality. He was so shocked that he dropped his sword right onto his foot, but he didn't even notice because he was totally frozen. The guy was totally losing it, stuttering over every word and sweating bullets as he begged to know how any of this even happened. He looked down at the Phoenix, which was now just a pile of sliced-up pieces, and realized there was no way it was coming back from that right, as a voice announced his big win. Fafnir stood right there drooling on the floor while Kai just froze in shock, asking Phoenix if she was kidding, but she told him straight up that she'd been reborn. She stood right by his side, clutching her fork and knife while he cooked up that Phoenix for her. When he finally handed her the plate, she was totally hyped. But the guy was just moving on. Suddenly, a system window popped up showing he'd found the immortal Phoenix soul and asking to add it to the catalog, so he just repeated the words out loud. Our guy was absolutely losing it, so he let out a huge shout and smashed his fist right through the wall. Kai asked the bird how she was immortal, but she just kept chirping nonsense at him. Did she seriously give up that fast? Like, couldn't she have at least tried to hold out for... Fafnir was just chilling and eating her food when her jaw dropped at what he did, and he immediately realized he'd totally messed up. He spun around right away, held his hands up with a sweet smile, and told her she shouldn't say stuff like that before asking if she really got what he meant. Kai claimed he messed up on purpose just to teach her a lesson, but Fafnir totally called his bluff, saying he just got way too excited, which made Kai get all defensive and insist he was just trying to show her. He calls her a lady, but then says it was a total mistake to speak up, asking for her take while secretly regretting it himself, and then he asks if she even gets what he's saying. Faf just flashed him a super sweet smile and said she totally understood, but then she straight up called him a really bad master. They just stared at each other in total silence for a few seconds until it finally clicked, and then he started totally freaking out. Tai patted her head and called her a good girl, but inside he felt like a total failure as a dad, so he asked her to head home and she agreed, saying they'd go back to the garbage bug. Our girl looked totally wiped out, like all those sleepless nights and crazy battles finally caught up to her. Her eyes were completely hollow, and she looked like she didn't even have the strength to lift. Faef is a legendary dragon, a super rare and godlike beast who's basically a genius with insane magic powers. Our main girl has been stuck in this dungeon for forever, but she's... Then the master finally arrived, hitting her life like a massive storm and instantly taking over the empty world she used to live in. The master completely wrecked the wall behind her with a single swing, showing off his insane power and proving he's ready to flip the script on anyone who stands in his way. The owner looked totally terrifying with a freezing stare that felt super intense, but right then, the girl remembered some words she'd heard a long time ago. She was told that one day someone would come to set her free, and when they finally met, she'd have to trust him and keep moving forward no matter what. And just like that, she moved in and started living with the owner. Eventually, he wasn't scary anymore, and they became close friends because he was actually super nice, and his amazing cooking was the only thing that really cheered her up. After forever, she finally had someone to talk to, grab a meal with, and feel safe around, making her totally forget how lonely she'd actually been. She fell super hard for her master, and it was like they were totally destined to be together. They spent every single day doing everything together, from going on wild adventures and training to just chilling and sleeping like a real family. Fuff basically inhaled the whole meal and still asked for seconds, showing off her bubbly personality and making it another super sweet moment for the two of them. She flashed a huge smile and hyped up the owner's amazing cooking. She told him he was a total pro in the kitchen, which made him get all shy and embarrassed. His face turned bright. He gave her a playful head pat and told her she's the only reason his cooking is actually good now, admitting he never really cared about it until he started trying for her. Suddenly, the door swings open and the owner whips around in shock as someone barges in and totally ruins their private moment. Suddenly, these massive, powerful creatures with human faces walked right up and gave everyone a super friendly good morning. The guests just announced that 2 new recruits are joining the squad starting today. This is a massive deal because their team is finally leveling up and opening doors to some crazy new possibilities. Our hero was totally hyped to see the new crew, telling them he really trusted their skills and knew they'd crush it if they worked together. His crew wished him luck, and he told them to have dinner and a hot bath ready for when he got back tonight, which really should have been the perfect end to a crazy day. Faf looked at her master with total devotion, like a tiny pet who finally found someone strong enough to keep her safe. She explained that the monsters really look up to their master, and getting a compliment from him made her feel awesome. So right then, he turned around and gently called her over to his side for some support. She focused all her energy and pulled off a massive spell to finish the job, taking a huge step toward leveling up her powers. She was totally hyped to nail that shot on her first try again today. It proved her crazy training was actually working, and she was finally leveling up. She felt super confident as she walked up to the owner with her eyes wide and mouth hanging open in total shock. But she couldn't even get a word out because his whole vibe had completely changed. He just stood there looking totally crushed with his head down and a tense face, his eyes looking completely empty compared to the strong, confident guy we're used to. She called out to him again, totally lost on why he was suddenly so heartbroken, and she tried everything she could to bring back his old vibe. Suddenly, the owner starts laughing. It's awkward at first, but then it gets louder and more real, like he's finally letting go of all his sadness and lighting up the whole room. He gave her another head pat, and while she felt super loved, she realized that even though he's a total powerhouse, he actually looks really lonely sometimes. Just the other night, she woke up to use the bathroom when something totally unexplainable happened that sent her heart into overdrive. The owner was nowhere to be found, and as the loneliness hit her, she just broke down in tears, feeling totally miserable and helpless. She scrambled through the hut looking for her master, crying her eyes out because she was honestly terrified and felt completely alone. The owner stood outside leaning on the railing, staring way out at the horizon with a look that was super deep and honestly just sad. She kept seeing his face shift into a look of total sadness that really worried her, but she just couldn't get close enough to ask him what was going on. He called out a name no one had ever heard, sounding like it brought him both total warmth and deep pain, while the girl realized that name held a secret piece of his very soul. Every time the master said that name, his eyes would go totally blank like he was trapped in a dark memory, and it felt like the name was literally pulling on his soul. Out of nowhere, the door creaks and snaps him out of his thoughts. He whips around and stares into the dark, trying to see what made that noise. His heart starts racing like... She stood at the door crying her eyes out, her shoulders shaking as she sobbed. She was totally broken and looked completely lost. Her crying was so real and intense that it hit you right. He softly wiped her tears away, just trying to figure out why she was so heartbroken. He didn't even flinch as he told her they were hitting the dungeon tomorrow, teasing the... Later, they're chilling on the bed when he pulls her into a tight hug, and when she nervously asks if he'll stay forever, he promises he's never leaving, giving... She was in total shock and kept asking him to say it again while crying her eyes out. She was just so scared of losing him forever. Her pain really hit him deep, and he knew right. He swore he'd always be real with her since honesty was their foundation, and he knew that without total trust, their whole relationship would basically be worthless. He asks her point blank if she's ever lied to him, and when she says no and reminds him they've always been real with each other, their bond becomes totally unbreakable. The owner just smiled and promised he'd always tell her the truth, sounding super supportive and making it clear he'd always be 100% real with her no matter what. They promised to stay together through thick and thin, no matter what. She finally admitted her feelings, making their bond totally unbreakable. That promise gave them the power to crush any challenge, and now, rewrite 2. That one promise chased away all her fears and made her feel totally safe and warm inside. Final polish. Single line, no breaks. he promised. The divine test is finally over, and all that crazy tension from the last few years is finally fading away now that our heroes know exactly where they're headed next. The three heroes stood right in the middle of the glowing magic circle, soaked in light and staring straight ahead at the wild new adventures waiting for them on the other side. Once the test was over, Kai's memories finally came rushing back, making him feel stronger and sharper than ever. While traveling to the capital, our hero noticed a red-haired guy wouldn't stop following him, causing him to accidentally stumble into the dungeon of the divine test and face a total mystery. He had to catch the guy chasing him to escape the dungeon, but luckily, he just unlocked a broken power to freeze time that gives him a massive edge in the fight. As he crushed millions of monsters and grinded through the dungeon, something crazy started happening. The whole test and the way he saw everything were totally shifting. Years and years went by, but Kai didn't age a single day, staying completely young even after being stuck in that weird place for so long. Fafnir noticed the master was acting super sketchy, and Astroff totally agreed. She straight up asked the hero if he wanted to go back to his old world, and that's when the hero stared at them with totally wild eyes, looking completely drained, confused, and torn up inside after that brutal test. She held up a white flag to call for peace, but her face was a total wreck of sadness and pure hidden pain. Fafnir whispered a warning that someone was here, and as this mystery guest walked in, the whole room went dead silent, and everyone just froze. He told the hero there was no escape, and suddenly this new guy appeared out of thin air, looking like a massive problem they'd have to deal with. Kai instantly recognized the red-haired guy who'd been stalking him for ages, and seeing him right there left Kai feeling totally exhausted, but also a little shocked. Kai remembered this guy being a total beast, but seeing him look so weak and worn out now left him wondering what the heck happened. The kid stuck his tongue out and asked the hero if he brought any backup, acting like a total jerk just to get under his skin and scare him. He called the hero's allies funny girls, making everyone nearby so mad they looked ready to throw down. The allies were ready to charge, but the hero stopped them and said he'd handle the red-haired man by himself, showing everyone just how confident he really was. The hero wanted to grill the stranger for some answers, feeling totally confident with his OP divine seal gloves ready to go, but the mysterious guy just asked if he even realized how much trouble he was actually in. The heroes started bickering to prove their point, but the stranger just laughed it off, saying Kai wasn't even worth the effort of drawing a sword since he was way too weak to. Out of nowhere, a sharp pain rips through the guy's arm, making him scream in total shock. He never saw this coming, and his yell echoes through the whole area. Everyone is just frozen. His scream ripped through the trees, sounding totally terrified. You could hear the pure agony in his voice, and it put everyone on high alert. It felt like that noise just woke up something super old. Out of nowhere, 3 crazy wolves charge at him with their teeth bared and eyes glowing, moving fast and looking ready to rip him to shreds in a super dangerous attack. Kai immediately showed off his insane sword skills, hitting every mark perfectly. He was moving so fast and smooth, it almost looked like he was dancing. Every single slash he made was taking down. His rival was so shocked by Kai's skills that he called him a monster and told everyone to stay away, a name that showed just how much they feared and respected his power. Even after being warned, he keeps on swinging and pulls out the deadly line, a move so precise and lethal that it wipes out the enemy instantly. That death line absolutely wrecked the enemy, and the whole squad was hyped about the win. Everyone was so proud of Kai that the whole room felt super wholesome and supportive. This moment proved they were This red-haired guy was rocking the Imperial squad symbol, showing he's part of a super elite group that makes everyone absolutely terrified to even look at him. A shady noble from the Amelia Empire is plotting to kidnap Princess Rosemary Lotto Amelia, and his crazy plan could totally wreck the peace for everyone. To pull off the plan, the Emperor sent his legendary sword, Zignil Gastria, and the Summoner Ends on a top-secret mission, because they're the absolute best of the best. Our hero was constantly thinking about Princess Rose, and knew he had to keep her safe no matter what. He felt like the whole kingdom's future was riding on him, and he was ready to risk. His partner saw that worried look on his face and asked if something was eating at him, showing she truly cared and wanted to help. Our hero says he's going to use the Emperor's sword to prove he's the real deal and keep his family safe, and you can tell he's 100% serious about finally getting justice. The boys quickly cooked up a plan to distract the Imperial troops, knowing they had to be both smart and gutsy, since they were totally running out of time. The hero ordered the grasshoppers to take out their enemies without holding back for even a second. He knew that being totally cold-blooded was the only way they were going to win this war. His ally was totally blown away, thinking Kai had actually tamed those dungeon monsters. A teammate like that is a total game changer, bringing a massive power boost that nobody saw coming. He summoned a massive swarm of grasshoppers. There were so many of them that the whole sky turned pitch black. These bugs were ready to follow his orders and totally wipe out the enemy without. Kai orders his grasshoppers to charge, and they zoom into the sky before slamming down on their enemies with a massive roar, leaving them totally helpless. They charged forward with insane speed, ready to unleash an unstoppable strike that looked straight up deadly. These grasshoppers started shredding through everyone's defenses and biting them like crazy, landing brutal hits and terrifying the crowd with their massive numbers and pure rage. They even went after mean dogs that were biting people's hands, and since they were totally out of control, nobody could stop these tiny but deadly monsters. Inside Princess Rose's tent, things got loud and chaotic outside the walls, making everyone super nervous as they all rushed together to get ready for an attack. Suddenly, another girl screams that they're under attack and tells everyone to gear up, because things are about to get crazy and they all need to be ready for the fight. When our girl asks who the enemy is, Anna reveals it's the Empire, but there's a traitor hiding right under their noses, making everyone in the camp totally paranoid. They rushed out of the tent to bail, but a huge mob was already there ready to charge, and they realized they had to make a move immediately. Lord Frankton stood out from the crowd, twirling his mustache with a cocky smirk that showed he was totally in charge and definitely up to something. Anna stepped up to be the princess's shield, ready to charge into the fight and save her queen from the danger ahead. The hero says if Princess Mary is actually the Empire's third prince and takes the throne, their home will be safe, so he's making this play just to save the kingdom. Lord Frankton promised he'd do whatever it takes for the kingdom's future, but literally nobody in the room actually believed him. The princess screamed right in the Lord's face, calling him a traitor because she refused to follow a plan that totally trashed her sense of honor. Suddenly, a mysterious guy shows up and vows to shut the whole plan down, making things way more intense. The girl spotted the head knight Arnold heading straight for them with total confidence. He looked totally locked in and lean, earning everyone's respect as he stood as the princess's main shield during this super intense moment. The guy with the cigarette suddenly charges the Lord, swinging his sword like a beast, and he's so fearless that the Lord starts screaming at the top of his lungs to save himself and warn his guards. But right at the last second, another guy jumps in front of the blade to stop the hit. He stares Arnold down with a look so cold it stops him dead in his tracks, making... The kid stared the hero down with total confidence, staying super chill while making it clear he wasn't backing down or letting the fight end as easily as the hero wanted. Stoked to finally find a real challenge, the guy introduced himself as Zignil Gastria, and he was so calm and collected that everyone watching knew he was the real deal. He asked if this kid was really the Empire's legendary sword, knowing that the answer would change the entire course of the battle. The heroes are going at it in a super fast sword fight, and it's so intense because one single hit could totally change the game for either side. The girls watched the insane battle with wide eyes, feeling super nervous but totally hyped as they realized these two guys were perfectly matched in such a flashy showdown. Suddenly, a snake lunges out of nowhere with its jaws wide open for a deadly bite, making everyone freeze because this one move could flip the entire fight. The snake lunges forward, trying to sink its fangs right into Arnold's neck. Knight saw the attack coming and hit the snake with a glare so terrifying it froze the predator in its tracks and sent chills through everyone there. He mocked the guy, asking if that was really supposed to scare him, and then he dropped a look so terrifying that his opponent just froze up in total shock. He screamed at his partner Enzu to stay back, wanting to handle the whole fight solo just to prove how strong he really was. He told them to stop the games and stick to the plan, and his calm vibe was the only thing keeping the squad together while the whole battle was going crazy. Our hero made it clear that the Emperor's mission was his top priority, and he wasn't backing down for anyone, showing everyone he was totally locked in and ready to do whatever it took to. The princess was totally terrified, her heart racing as she watched the hero take on every enemy alone just to keep everyone safe, and she desperately prayed he'd survive the fight. Our hero is pretty exhausted, but he's still rocking that cigarette like it's giving him a massive confidence boost, keeping his breath steady and his eyes sharp as he refuses to leave his post. Anna watched everything go down, racking her brain for the perfect plan to keep the princess and her squad safe. Anna knew she had to bait the bad guys so everyone could bolt for the woods. She didn't have much time, but her plan was ready to go. Keeping the princess safe was the only thing. Saving the princess was the only thing that mattered now, because the heroes knew one tiny mistake would cost her life and destroy the entire kingdom. Out of nowhere, a knight jumps out and grabs Anna by the throat, shouting that she isn't going anywhere as she realizes she's in serious danger. Result: more knights swarmed the princess, grabbing her before she could even try to run. She tried to fight them off, but they were just too strong, and things were getting dangerous fast. Right then, Inns turned around and coldly told the heroes they could do whatever they wanted with the girls, acting like he'd totally given up on being a good person just to finish the mission. The girls scream and fight to get away, but the knights hold them in a death grip, and they're totally paralyzed with fear. The girls couldn't believe the knights would actually backstab their own people, and that betrayal just fired them up to fight back way harder than before. The princess screamed her lungs out for help. Her voice cut right through the heavy, terrifying silence. She was desperate to save her friends and herself, but it felt like no one was even listening. Out of nowhere, something insane happens. The hero holding Anna gets hit right in the neck and his head is sliced clean off, totally flipping the script and leaving everyone in shock. The knight holding the princess got wrecked next when Kai suddenly appeared behind him and sliced his head off in one fast, clean move. The princess watched in total shock as her guard was wiped out right in front of her, her eyes going wide and her heart racing like crazy because this rescue was so out of nowhere she couldn't believe it. The creature's body slumped to the ground as the princess stood there frozen, her mind totally blanking on the fact that Kai had just stepped in and saved her. She finally saw that Kai was the one who saved her when things got dangerous, and she'd never look at him the same way again. Once you hit 13, you get a massive power-up from the gods that changes your life forever, deciding exactly how strong you'll be and giving you a shot at becoming a total legend. Someone gets handed a legendary holy sword that's literally made of light and justice. This insane gift gives them the strength to protect the weak and fight for the truth. Anyone who carries a sword like this ends up becoming a massive hero and a guardian for their people. The others get the King of Spears, a legendary weapon that turns you into a total beast and gives you a massive edge in every fight. Kai ended up with the absolute worst power in history. It was basically trash and totally useless. Everyone started looking down on him, and even Kai began to think he was a total failure. The girl watching Kai was totally stunned and her jaw literally dropped. She really thought he was just some weak kid who couldn't do anything. But now, the guy standing there looked like... She used to think Kai was a total weakling, but now he's looking like a beast. You can literally see the power and confidence in every move he makes. And He reached out his hand and softly asked if she could stand, making it clear he'd always be there to protect her no matter what. The second people saw Kai, they screamed he was a monster and bolted, totally freaked out by his insane powers and making sure to never cross his path again. Just then, Foth bursts onto the scene and starts tearing through the enemies, getting her team hyped up while the bad guys start panicking, totally flipping the script on the whole fight. The squad finally nabbed the Lord and stood by the princess, showing everyone they were totally united. This massive win gave them all the hype and hope they needed for a legendary future. Commander Kai looked at his squad with a proud smirk. He was so chill that it got everyone fired up, but the princess was just standing there with her jaw dropped. She couldn't. The princess stood there in total shock, trying to make sense of the insane scene in front of her while realizing just how big of a deal this really was. Her friend Rena always told her Kai was a total weakling, but everything she thought she knew about him is flipping upside down right now. She used to think Kai was just a weak, clueless kid who'd never amount to anything, but seeing him right now is totally blowing her mind and making her realize what real strength actually looks like. The princess literally couldn't believe what she was seeing. She was just standing there, totally frozen in shock. Everything felt like a wild dream that couldn't possibly be real. Her heart was... She started screaming at the top of her lungs for Arnold and Anna, sounding totally terrified as she tried to wake them up and show them the mess they were in. Kai summoned a bunch of healing slimes that swarmed around everyone. These magic blobs patched up their cuts and gave them a massive energy boost, making them feel like they could actually win. Arnold was totally blown away by how fast the slimes healed his injuries. He never expected a miracle like this, and finally saw how awesome their magic really was. With his body fixed, he felt more pumped. As soon as Anna used the slimes, her pain vanished, and she felt a massive surge of power, giving her the drive to keep fighting for the princess and the kingdom. The girls were stoked to be saved, and the hero felt amazing for stepping up when things got tough, making their bond and trust in each other stronger than ever. The guy was totally blown away and asked Kai if he could really summon those slimes, showing some serious respect for how strong they were in a fight. He told them the slimes were his crew, then turned to the Lord with a smirk and asked what kind of pathetic show he was trying to pull. The Lord's two goons thought catching one girl would be a total breeze, so they decided to handle it all themselves, completely clueless about the massive threat they were actually facing. The boys couldn't believe their eyes when they saw the Imperial soldiers were back. Things just got way more dangerous, and they had to gear up for a massive fight. It was finally time to see. Just then, Kai spots a mysterious alien swordsman who could totally flip the script on this fight. So he narrows his eyes and gets ready for a serious new threat. The hero steps up to challenge Kai, and the vibe gets super intense because everyone knows this one fight is going to decide who wins it all. Kai had no clue why this guy was acting so intense, staying totally chill while his opponent was basically losing his mind. He told Enzu to stay out of it because he wanted to finish the hero himself, and with that look of pure rage, you just knew he wasn't backing down. The guy straight up told them he was disappointed because this fight wasn't even worth his effort, making their big standoff feel way more intense. Arnold screams at the princess to get her head back inside and instantly jumps in front of her, using his own body as a shield to block any incoming attacks. The other guy had no clue what Kai was even doing. Kai suddenly snatched a stick off the ground, ready to swing it or block the next hit. His eyes were totally locked in, and Kai thought this guy was such a total scrub that he wasn't even worth drawing a sword on, feeling way too strong to waste his time on someone so weak. Being looked down on like that totally ticked our hero off. He wasn't about to let that slide for even a second. He was absolutely fuming and knew he had to make a massive. He lunged at Kai with a super fast and powerful sword strike, giving him zero time to think as he scrambled to block or dodge the blow. Tai brushed off that hit like it was nothing, showing off his insane skills as he moved with crazy speed to deflect every attack without even breaking a sweat. He kept swatting away every single strike without letting a single one land, and the crowd was totally losing it because his speed was just on another level. Out of nowhere, the heroes scatter and shove each other back, giving everyone a quick second to rethink their moves before the next round of hits starts. The girls were totally blown away watching the battle go down. They were shocked to see one of the heroes fighting with a basic stick instead of a sword. It was super weird and mysterious, making not a single attack could even graze Kai. He was basically untouchable against those heavy hits. He stayed totally chill and confident, blowing everyone's minds even more. Arnold just stared with his jaw dropped and a cigarette dangling, completely blown away by how insane this kid's skills were. He was shocked by how perfect the kid's sword hand was, looking like someone who'd been training for a lifetime. One hero had tens of thousands of years of extra training, making this fight a total blowout that showed just how huge the skill gap really was. The princess realized his real talent wasn't just being strong, but his insane work ethic, showing everyone that even a weak gift can become a top-tier weapon if you never stop grinding. As the hero clashed with Kai, he realized he was losing fast, and panic set in when he saw that Kai was way stronger than he ever expected. Kai moved like a flash and smacked the sword right out of the guy's hand, leaving him totally stunned and defenseless as the whole fight flipped in Kai's favor. The guy was completely thrown off by the kid's weird behavior and couldn't believe he got wrecked so easily, leaving his confidence totally shattered. He stood there sweating with his jaw on the floor, totally shocked that he actually lost. and he felt so humiliated having his ego crushed right in front of the whole crowd. The hero actually let Kai live out of respect for the Emperor's sword, choosing honor over the kill shot even though Kai was totally defeated. Enz watched the chaos unfold and realized things were spiraling out of control, leaving him totally stressed about what this battle would mean for the future. Our hero let out a massive scream of pure rage and shame, refusing to accept defeat or let his enemy see him look weak. The villains realized they had to take out both of them immediately because they were getting way too dangerous, and since Kai's magic was becoming a huge problem, he started charging up his ultimate spell for the final blow. He summoned a super flashy fire spirit to burn everything down and totally wreck his enemies, and then massive flames blasted out, turning the whole area into a scorching hot danger zone. The heroes were totally frozen in shock, having no clue what Enz was actually doing or how his power got this insane, while massive flames swallowed everything and turned the whole place into a total fiery nightmare. Kai bragged that this weak little flame couldn't touch him, so he called out his spirits to shut the fire down and stop the chaos. That's when the real war finally exploded, with everyone's powers clashing to decide if our heroes and the whole kingdom would even survive. Kai's new spirit bragged that it could make any wish he wanted come true. It sounded super powerful and acted like it already knew exactly how everything would end. Everyone could tell this thing was totally... Kai just snatched the spirit with one hand like it was nothing, showing off some seriously insane magic power. He moved so fast and smooth that you could tell he's a total pro. Everyone watching was completely stunned by how easy he made it look. He gripped the book and started flipping through the pages, searching for a spell or some info to help him control his powers. En noticed Kai was totally locked in and tried to tempt him by promising that reaching the Empire would make him rich, famous, and super powerful. Sensing the danger, our hero instantly sliced his enemy clean in half. It was a lightning-fast strike that didn't give the guy a single second to react. This move proved Kai is totally... He spat out that he wasn't listening to a guy who treats his own people like bait. He shut down the fake talk and mind games because he only cares about being real. Kai told his crew to back down and said they didn't need to start a riot. They just needed to move on to the next thing. He told everyone to stay cool and keep their heads in. The Lord stopped them right there, demanding the hero serve the future king so they could join forces and build a powerful kingdom together. Our hero shut him down cold, telling the king there was no way he was taking orders from him. He turned down the deal right then and there, proving he plays by his own rules. Anna watched everything go down and heard the royals were basically pests, making her get super angry as she realized people in power just love to crush everyone else. She screamed right in the hero's face, telling him he better watch his mouth. Dissing the Korea family is a huge mistake that nobody gets away with. Her voice sounded totally terrifying as the princess stepped in and shut the whole argument down, her voice booming through the room as she told everyone to stop the insults and show her family some respect. She told everyone that she was doing just fine. For the first time ever, she finally met someone who totally got her. This gave her a huge spark of hope and finally let her feel at peace. The princess finally admits her big dream is to build a better world right by his side. The hero asks if she's actually down to give up her royal title to make it happen. She doesn't. She made Kai her official royal guard and put her entire life in his hands. This decision left everyone in the room completely stunned. No one saw this coming, but the princess knew Kai was the best pick. Everyone's jaws dropped, because literally nobody in that court could be trusted. The princess told them straight up that the hero was the only real protector in a room full of fakes. It was She told Kai he's her new bodyguard, but he has to kiss her hand to make it official. This wasn't just for show. It meant they were finally on the same team. They locked eyes, and while she was beaming with hope, Kai looked totally serious and ready for anything, proving they were finally the ultimate team. Kai grabbed her hand to show he was totally on her side. That one small move proved he was dead serious. He was ready to protect her at all costs, no matter what. He promised to be her shield and stay by her side until she found a real guard, his voice shaking with emotion but sounding totally serious about keeping her safe. Kai said he was all in, which totally shocked the princess. She didn't expect him to be this loyal or determined. She felt so thankful, and finally started to believe that things would get... They shook hands, and the princess told him she was totally counting on him to get the job done. That one move started a massive new team-up fueled by pure hype and grit, the princess was totally stoked as the girls started plotting their big dreams, and you could just feel the hype for the amazing future they were about to build together. The princess trusted Arnold's letter completely because she knew he'd never lie to her. His words gave her the confidence that everything was finally under control. This message was the only thing keeping her. She scribbled like crazy to finish a letter to her best friend Rena, pouring all her worry into a desperate warning to get help before things got really dangerous. The letter spilled all the tea on Lord Franklin's crazy, sudden attack and how brutal it really was. The princess just wanted Rena to stay on her toes and be super careful now that The princess was super hyped and wrote all about how her childhood friend Kai totally crushed those Imperial soldiers. They were chilling at a cafe with this guy, and the princess could tell he was the real deal because he stayed super calm and acted like a total hero. The city was actually pretty chill, and everyone was just out there doing their own thing. The crew finally crashed at an inn to rest up after a super long day. They used this time to recharge their batteries for the insane challenges waiting for them. They talked it over and realized they were stuck there until things finally chilled out. This quick break let them catch their breath and figure out their next move. But they were still totally on edge because the princess was honestly so hyped that Kai joined the Royal Guard, because having him there gave her the massive boost of hope and confidence she needed to face the tough times ahead. Kai realized he only stepped up to protect Rose because she was Rena's friend, and that thought gave him a huge boost of courage. The princess asked if Rena should take the dangerous job, but the hero shut it down, saying he'd protect his friend and keep her safe. He started to walk away, telling her he'd much rather have the truth now than deal with secrets that would just make everything a total mess later. He made it super clear that he'd rather hear the cold truth than any lie, because secrets just wreck trust, and he thinks being totally honest is the only way to handle a mess like this. The princess asked for one last favor and gave him a cheeky wink, showing they were totally on the same page and finally trusted each other. Right now, the hero's squad is totally crashed out in one bed, finally catching a break so they can recharge for the absolute chaos coming their way. He slammed the door open and screamed for them to wake up. The girls jumped in total shock because they didn't see him coming. It was a crazy way to wake them up, but he told the group they were hitting the city to shop and scout the area, since they needed to grab supplies and see what they were up against for the next tests. One of the girls' eyes popped wide open in total shock, because she just woke up and definitely wasn't expecting things to be this hyped up so soon. Rubbing her eyes in total shock, Faf asked if Astaroth was actually a girl, knowing how awkward it'd be to mess up something this important. The sweet girl stepped out, rubbing her sleepy eyes, and gave Rose a warm good morning, making the whole room feel super cozy and full of friendship. The princess flashed a big smile and wished her luck in the kitchen. Then, while brushing her hair, she asked if Talkit helped Kai hunt for cake ingredients to show she was really thinking ahead. Her eyes lit up the second she heard cake, and finding out he could actually cook made the whole squad feel hyped and way more connected. Kai turned to Nemia and put the princess's life in his hands, trusting him 100% so he could finally focus on what needed to be done. The crew heads out to scout the city and see how the locals are living, hoping to snag some intel and get ready for whatever's coming next. The princess and Anna were basically stressing out, wondering if they were actually going to be okay. You could totally feel how nervous and worried they both were. They were just praying that things would go. Papra is this massive city hidden deep inside a giant forest. Hunters from all over the world flock here to trade and get rich. The whole place has its own unique vibe, packed with noisy markets, and this city was a total safe haven where all kinds of beast folk could finally chill out and live together in peace. Kai's mom was a hunter who always dreamed of the big city, especially Papro, which she called a super powerful and cozy place that you'd always want to come. Thinking back to those days always put a huge smile on his face. Remembering his mom and the big dreams, she had really lit a fire in his heart. Those memories gave him the power to keep noise from the street and decided to see what was going on. Line 2. The voices and fuss attracted their attention, forcing them to come closer to understand the essence of the situation. They watched the reveal of the year's legendary fruit. It was out for everyone to see, and people couldn't stop hyping up its insane flavor. The whole thing got everyone super hyped. They had this super rich dude taste the fruit to see if it was actually legit. And since he's a total VIP with the best taste, everyone was dying to hear his opinion. The guy gave a quiet nod and got ready to taste the fruit, looking so cool and powerful that you just knew he only accepted the absolute best. The boys spotted a mage hiding behind the man, secretly using magic to rot the fruit just to make him look bad. The guy took one bite of the nasty fruit and totally lost it, screaming at the seller for being a scammer who sells fake trash. He was absolutely fuming, screaming threats at the seller and everyone nearby until the whole crowd was shaking with fear. This dude threatened to use all his money and power to turn the whole city against the merchants for lying, and now everyone's terrified of what's going to happen to them. The shopkeeper kept swearing he was innocent to save his reputation, but the heroes stepped in and said he was framed by someone using dirty magic tricks. AI realized Frank Tong and the rich elites were a total lost cause, and seeing his cold, arrogant attitude honestly broke her heart as the government turned into a bunch of cruel, backstabbing. Astarov shouted that this madness had to end right now. She wasn't about to just watch while people got hurt. Something snapped inside her, and she was finally ready to fight for what. The crowd started screaming at the Count while he was just snacking on fruit, yelling that they weren't going to let him get away with breaking the rules anymore. While everyone else was freaking out because they knew these two, Kai just stood there totally clueless, staring them down to figure out what they were actually up to. It was the guild leader Sharpsword Cider and his deputy Caber, two legendary powerhouses who ruled the city and made everyone tremble just by showing up. The guy said this was the most famous guild of the Four Saints, and he was totally fuming that they were barging in to mess with his power and ruin his plans. He scowled and looked totally ticked off, and his obvious anger made the whole situation feel way more intense for everyone there. The guy told them the prince was actually a nice dude who didn't want to hurt anyone, hoping he could stop the fight and settle things peacefully. The guild told the guy to chill out, reminding him they were a massive deal, and basically warning him that they had the power to flip the script on everything. The Count finally caved to the guild and asked for normal fruit next time, which was basically his way of admitting defeat while trying to look cool in front of everyone. The whole crowd is on the edge of their seats and totally hyped, just waiting to see what happens next and who's actually going to win this crazy game. The guys figured the whole thing was a total setup and everyone was in on it, even the Count. But not knowing what they were actually up to had them feeling super on edge. Out of nowhere, Finn the dog just bolts, howling and looking totally on edge, so the heroes chase after him because they know something huge is about to happen. Our hero spotted a whole mob picking on a beast-like kid. He stood his ground all alone, and the crowd was seriously ticked off that he was getting in their way. Things got super intense. The guy started talking back to the bullies, trying to stand his ground even though he was totally outnumbered. The crowd starts shoving him until his fruit spills all over the ground, making the bullies even angrier while the poor guy just feels totally lost and helpless. Right then, a bald kid stepped up to help and flexed his fists, making it super clear that things were about to get wild. The bald guy screamed his head off when he realized he was facing a pack of parasites. These were the kind of creeps who only lived to cause trouble for everyone else. His voice sounded totally terrifying as fruit was flying everywhere as those wild kids scrambled to grab it, and even though it looked totally hopeless, he refused to quit and tried to save whatever he could. The bald dude just stomps on the fruit and starts trash-talking the kid's family, saying they were nothing but trouble, and it really messes with the poor guy's head. This kid thought growing the best fruit with his dad would keep them safe, and even though he wanted to be a powerful hunter, this bully was ready to step on his head and keep him down. He was totally shocked to see his dog step up for him, and it felt amazing knowing his best friend had his back when things got real. The dog growled and stood his ground to protect the kid, and the guy couldn't believe this tiny animal was actually brave enough to fight for him. These thugs had no clue what kind of beast they were messing with, and they were being totally heartless, trying to take out the dog just to break the kid's spirit. Right then, Kaya showed up and shut the dog down, telling him to stop blasting fire in the streets before they got in massive trouble. The thugs whipped around at the guy's shout and saw the whole hero squad rolling up, making things so intense they started wondering if this fight was even worth it anymore. The dog actually starts talking to the team, and the bad guys are totally losing their minds. They tell him to stay out of their business or he's going to regret it. This makes the Kai suddenly blasts one of the thugs with a massive kick to show he's not playing around, catching everyone completely off guard. Everyone's jaws hit the floor as they stared at Kai, totally stunned because nobody expected him to make such a massive move out of nowhere. The ball defender screamed for everyone to charge, but our hero was already chanting a spell to keep his whole squad safe. Kai told them he'd finish everyone off in a heartbeat, and he sounded so serious that you just knew he wasn't there to play games. Kai's magic was so blindingly bright that the bad guys had to shut their eyes in total fear, as a massive tornado of energy exploded from him, ready to blow them all away. The bullied kid's jaw hit the floor when Kai unleashed that insane power out of nowhere, and seeing that massive blast gave him the first bit of hope he'd felt in ages. Kai wiped out every single thug except for the rowdiest one, who stood there paralyzed with fear as Kai stepped up to keep the beatdown moving. Kai tells the kid to thank the dog for saving him, then starts using his slimes to patch him up. The magic energy slowly brings the boy back to life, making all his pain. He told his crew to get the kid to a secret hideout so he could finally chill and recover from all that crazy stress. The LAZ asked Kai what his game plan was and how he was actually going to handle this mess. Kai locked onto the main guy and said he was dragging him right to the boss, clearly planning to squeeze him for info or cut a deal with the big shots. Our hero warned the group that this city was crawling with lies and bad vibes, sensing that something evil was hiding behind its perfect look, and his words put everyone on high alert. Right then, the princess whipped up some pies for all her guests. You could totally taste the love in every bite, and the whole place smelled amazing and felt super cozy. Everyone was so hyped. Everyone was losing their minds over how good the princess could cook, especially since those pies were super soft, smelled amazing, and looked like total masterpieces. Everyone dug into that amazing pie, totally loving every single bite. In that moment, they didn't even need to say a word. All that mattered was the delicious smell and the cozy feeling in. Everyone realized Kai wasn't coming back from his mission today. This hit the princess hard because she was really looking forward to hanging out with him tonight. Without him there, she just felt super. The princess was dying for the hero to try her pies since he was the one who gave her the recipe, making every bite feel super special and cozy. Fafnir kept begging Rose for more because she couldn't get enough, and it was honestly so wholesome to see them finally vibe and trust each other like real friends. Anna started shouting at the top of her lungs, sounding super stressed and scared for the princess while everything around her fell apart. The princess gave Anna a major side-eye, basically reminding her that talking trash wasn't going to fix anything. Anna totally went off on Kai for putting the princess in danger, and she didn't even try to hide how scared she was. Kai apologized for the chaos and kept his speech going, trying to chill everyone out while he broke down exactly what was happening. He revealed that the deal involved nobles linked to the royal family, making this whole thing a super complicated and high-stakes mess. The princess hung on every word and was totally shocked, realizing things were way worse than she thought, and that she'd have to step in. She asked Kai exactly what she could do to help, proving she was totally ready to step up and fix this mess. Kai wants to round up all the beast people for a massive meeting to get them united and finally solve their problems. Right then, the bug actually started explaining what was going on. He explains that the city is only rich because the beast people make such amazing stuff, showing everyone that they're the real backbone of society. He exposed how the nobles, the guild, the mayor, and even the bandits were all secretly teaming up to keep the whole city under their thumb. These guys are obsessed with kicking the superhumans out of the city just to keep their power and stop things from changing. They see the beastmen as a massive threat to their control, and that fruit disaster was the smoking gun that proved they were total traitors, using magic to rot the whole harvest just to frame the beasts and make everyone turn on each other. The Count was totally sure nobody would find out about his secret deal with the guild, thinking he was way too smart to get caught while he hid his real plans and controlled everything from the shadows. A bunch of bandits had already snuck into the city, planning a massive attack in just a few days to cause total chaos and freak everyone out. Next, the Coin Guild jumped into the mix, ready to keep everyone in line their own way. The Coin Guild was ready to save the city by smashing the Beastman rebellion, using whatever brutal and violent methods they needed to wipe them out. These bandits were going to snatch up every beastman to sell them into slavery, then hide all the evidence so they could act like everything was totally normal. The bug spilled the beans that the parasites leaked the whole plan and their secret base. Everyone was totally shook once they realized how big of a threat this really was. It was clear now that Beelzebub the bug was Kai's right-hand man and a total master at getting people to talk. His methods were pretty brutal, but they definitely got the job done. Beelzebub went totally savage on the prisoners to find out where the beasts were hiding, showing zero mercy until they finally cracked and spilled the truth. Everyone was losing their minds after finding out the guild was going to jump the beastmen and frame them just to kick them out of town, which totally killed any trust in the leaders and left everyone terrified that their peaceful life was about to go up in flames. The girls listen in as Anna warns that the army won't make it in time, but the princess steps up and promises that Kai will protect the city, making everyone finally feel like they have a chance. Everyone's jaws dropped at the news, and you could feel the panic hitting everyone hard because this danger was actually happening. They knew a massive struggle was coming, and it was clear that not everyone. He remembered his parents totally breaking down from the stress, leaving him all alone to carry the weight of their future and just hope for the best. He was totally crushed because no one believed the nightmare was coming, and even though he felt completely alone, he refused to quit and decided to fight for what's right. Suddenly, Kai reaches out and holds him steady, acting like a total light in the dark and giving him the strength he needs to keep on fighting. Kai asked the boy what he needed, proving he wasn't just a leader, but a real friend who'd always have his back when things got tough. He squeezed his fist, powered up, and finally spoke with total confidence, ready to protect his friends and fight for his life no matter how hard it got. He shouted that he wouldn't let anyone use their fruits for evil, and he was going to keep the city and the beasts safe from anyone trying to destroy them. Everyone whipped around to look at him, and his insane courage showed them that one person can be a total symbol of hope when things are at their worst. Every beast nearby jumped in to back the kid up, proving that their real teamwork was strong enough to flip the script and keep them safe from the disaster heading their way. Hearing those words, a single tear falls down his face. He's finally relieved and hyped because he knows he's not fighting this battle alone anymore. Now he's got the guts. Everyone was freaking out and whispering like crazy, but Kai stayed totally calm and said all this drama was because of Sura's family. Sierra wiped his tears and tried to keep it together after hearing the whole story, thanking his mentor Kai with a shaky voice and eyes full of real gratitude. Kai gave the guy a serious but kind look and told him to skip the thanks, because they were going to protect their home together and make sure nobody had to face the danger alone. Everyone heard Kai and looked at him with fire in their eyes, realizing they couldn't back down now and feeling totally hyped to stand their ground. The villagers finally admitted they were just regular farmers, women, and kids who didn't know the first thing about fighting, and they were totally terrified because they'd never even held a weapon. Kai admits he could totally wreck these guys on his own, but he's not leaving anyone behind because they need to team up if they actually want to save the city. He warned them that if the beastmen don't prove they can defend their home, this whole fight is for nothing, and only their own power and guts will keep their land safe, and the hero promised he'd give everything he had for anyone willing to fight for freedom, and his words got everyone so hyped they were finally filled with hope for the future. The girls stared at Kai in total silence, trying to figure out his next move. You could see the respect in their eyes, and they were dying to know what he was cooking up. A few days later, deep inside a dark forest cave, the Silks are trying to wake up the demon beast, Touty, so they can unleash it to totally wreck the city of Popra. She warned them that 100 million is a massive amount of cash, so they had to be super careful not to mess anything up. She made it clear that they had to be perfect. Popra was going to be total rubble in just a few hours. The girl and the guy started bickering because they totally disagreed on the plan. This lady named Mrs. Neal was... This guy says he's working for Germa and orders everyone to dissolve, and suddenly they start melting into smoke, which absolutely terrifies the girl. Mrs. Neal was totally stunned, her jaw dropping in pure horror as she realized just how brutal and massive this situation really was, her mind racing to make sense of the nightmare unfolding right in front. The guy says he'll only let the women live because one of them is helping their mission, showing just how cold and calculated his master plan really is. He told her to beat it while he was still feeling nice, making it clear she'd regret it if she didn't, and his scary tone proved he was the one calling all the shots. Mrs. Neal was totally fuming, but she didn't even bother arguing since it was a waste of time, even though she was secretly boiling with rage over how much he'd let her down. He was screaming for everyone to get to Barca right now, since it was the only city safe enough to protect them from the disaster heading their way. These bugs are swarming through the air to warn everyone about the incoming danger, and if the city reacts fast enough, they might actually survive this disaster. The bug zips back to Kai with some terrifying news. A bunch of mysterious demons are about to raid the city. This news hits Kai hard, and he starts to really worry. Kai realized the demons smelled the holiday vibes and chose this exact moment to attack, so he knew he had to move fast and take them out right away. He decided it was time to see if the beastmen's training was actually paying off. This was the only way they were going to keep the city safe. If these guys were ready... At the same time, those thugs in monster costumes start their sneak attack right inside the city. They're planning to use tricks and shadows to take over and freak everyone out. One of the raid leaders barked orders at his crew to steal every single thing they could find. They were so obsessed with getting rich that they started smashing the place and hurting everyone in sight. The crew saw the signal and got ready to bolt with all the loot. To them, this was just a game to get rich fast and get away with it. They weren't even worried. They spotted a fancy house that looked loaded and decided to make it the first target of their crazy raid. Out of nowhere, a beast-like boy jumps in to stop them, and his insane guts totally shock the attackers who never expected anyone to actually fight back. They turned around and tried to scare him off by saying it was time for bed, but he didn't flinch and charged straight at them with his magic and pure guts. The boys blasted one of the attackers with a magic hit that knocked him out cold, proving these beast-like creatures can definitely protect their home. The kid stared at his hand with a huge grin, because the magic actually worked. Kai was the one who taught him this, after putting all his power and faith into these beast creatures so they could... A few days after the beastmen meeting, everyone started training like crazy to make sure their minds and bodies were ready for the massive fight heading their way. Every beast monster crowded into the main square to start their training and learn the basics of how to fight and defend themselves. Foth started hyping everyone up with her words, telling them to call her teacher and promising to make them strong enough to protect their home without being afraid of anyone. These beastly guys started training like absolute monsters, doing non-stop push-ups and running to get strong enough for the insane trials ahead. Kai told everyone they had to stand up to the gangs and keep their city safe, saying that if they train hard and stick together, no enemy can ever take them down. Kai says there are way fewer bandits than beastmen, giving everyone hope that they can actually win and keep their home safe. The mayor was on the hunt for a new girl, but to him, it was all just a twisted power trip. He was being totally cold and didn't care about anyone. He didn't. The girl he spotted looked back at him with pure terror, knowing her future was about to get really ugly. The city is a total mess, with some beastmen ready to fight for their freedom while others are just stuck living in fear. She slammed her foot right into his nose before he could even react, knocking the Count totally off balance and proving that these beastmen are ready to go all out to save their city. She starts throwing hands with insane speed and skill, looking like a total pro as she terrifies her enemies and gets her team hyped up. The Count slammed into the dirt, totally dazed by that massive hit, and his defeat signaled a brand new era where the beastmen finally fight back and the enemy's free ride is officially over. She started tearing his strategy apart again, calling out every single mistake he made with words so brutal and honest that the whole crowd had to stop and think, totally shifting the vibe of the room. Back at the battle, the heroes were already wrecking the bandits and taking them out of the fight, making it look like the beastmen were finally going to win. They should have been able to save their city and families, especially since their teamwork was way more intense than the bad guys ever expected. The guy yelled that the city saved itself with pure guts, and his speech got everyone fired up to finally believe in themselves and stand together. Turns out those bandits were total pushovers. The beastmen wiped them out in a heartbeat, showing off just how strong and ready they really were. This completely flipped the script and made everything was finally looking up as the bad vibes vanished, and for the first time, everyone felt safe enough to actually believe things were going to get better. Kai gave the princess her next orders, but she couldn't relax just yet because the upcoming tests were going to be tough, and she had to stay totally locked in. She had a million questions, but Kai told her to just watch and learn. He knew they could talk later, but right now, She had to study every move so she'd be... Back in the city, things were starting to go absolutely crazy. Cider started telling everyone the beastmen were teaming up with bandits to raid the city, which totally freaked the locals out and made everything way worse. The guy stood up and told everyone the beastmen were totally framed, shouting that it was all a big lie meant to turn them against each other and leave the village wide open for an attack. Kai saw the massive pile of captured bandits, leaving the guild leader totally shocked that the beastmen were this fast, which proved they were actually a super strong and organized force. The guildmaster started grilling the prisoners to find out what they were really up to, and he wasn't playing around because he had to protect his crew. Out of nowhere, one of the thugs finally broke and spilled everything, and his confession completely flipped the case by exposing all the shady secrets they were hiding. He asked if they were seriously gonna backstab their own crew just to keep all the glory, which totally wrecked their trust and started tearing the whole gang apart from the inside. Our hero was 100% sure the villagers wouldn't fall for the bandits' trash talk, since he knew that the truth would always crush those fake lies. Everyone listened up and realized the story totally checked out, so they stopped believing the lies and saw these beasts as their true protectors who were ready to fight for justice, giving the whole town a massive spark of hope. The beastmen rounded up every last bandit and exposed the guild's shady trade deals, making the whole town finally trust their heroes and proving that they're way stronger when they fight for the truth together. Out of nowhere, one of the guild guys whips out a weapon and things get crazy fast. He's totally desperate and just trying to scare everyone into staying in line. The whole room goes dead silent. He pointed a sharp blade at Kai and demanded his name, forcing our hero to step up his game and fight harder than ever to protect the city. Sharp thorns suddenly wrapped around Kai's hands to trap him, but even though he looked stuck, he was actually powering up to bust out and take the win. Kai just keeps it cool and says he's simply Kai, a name everyone has to respect, proving that real power comes from your confidence and not whether you're actually tied up. Even with the trap closing in, Kai moves with insane speed and grit, reacting so fast to every opening that he's basically unstoppable no matter how bad things look. He used his speed and smarts to flip the guild's own weapons on them, pulling off a shocker that totally changed the game and handed the win to the beasts. The guild was totally wrecked, and the members started pointing fingers and fighting with each other. Then Kai stepped in and ended the whole fight with one massive hit. He showed everyone that sticking together. Kai acted like it was no big deal, saying he just helps out where he can, and that totally fired everyone up to start protecting the city themselves. He asked everyone if they were ready to be heroes, and Kai stepped up to lead the fight for justice, hyping the whole crowd up to show their true courage and strength. He was totally shocked and asked if it was actually Kai. They confirmed he really is the son of the huntress Maria Heinemann, a guy born with a legendary bloodline and a massive destiny. Kai is officially working for Princess Rosemary now and has become a huge deal in the city. He's actually the one behind all the chaos and noise taking over the streets lately, while tons of people were seriously doubting Kai because he looked way too young and weak to actually take down the parasites threatening the city. Mrs. Rose's intel was the real deal, proving Kai was definitely in the city and making big moves, which gave the squad the hype they needed even if some heroes were still doubting him. Count Getty sent the heroes a letter saying the guild is totally lying to them, so now they have to uncover this huge conspiracy before the city gets wrecked from the inside. First, they had to snag the masterminds, with Johnson leading the investigation while Orga acted as the hunter. The heroes got orders to snatch the count or the mayor and hunt down the guild leader to shut them down. These guys were the masterminds behind the secret plot to destroy the city. Catching them, right in the middle of the investigation, Orga suddenly tells the mayor they need to talk, sounding super serious, and then he just bolts for the door without even waiting for a reply. In a split second, the mayor gets launched out of the room so fast he doesn't even realize what just hit him. The hunter was totally floored by what he saw. This one discovery changed everything in an instant. He froze when he saw a beast girl stepping right out of the mayor's room. He spotted this beast of a girl who definitely just trashed the mayor, and it was honestly terrifying to think about who's really calling the shots in this town. He looked at her and finally connected the dots, realizing those beast creatures were the ones behind everything, and this whole mess was way deeper than he first thought. She told him he showed up at the perfect time and wanted to find Kai's crew, So the hunter agreed to team up since he knew they could actually flip the script if they worked together. He thought about Kai's crew and how insanely tough they were, realizing these guys might be the only ones who can save the city and uncover all the dark secrets hidden in the shadows. Meanwhile, Cohen's squad pushed past Popra's outer walls to get ready for battle, taking a massive gamble that they had to take to stop the huge threat heading their way. Just as our hero is watching the chaos, he gets a report with some huge news that could totally flip the whole battle for the city. He found out that a gang of bandits actually raided the city, but the beastmen were way ahead of them and captured almost the whole crew, proving these defenders are total beasts and giving everyone hope. The hero was completely shook by the news. This attack was way bigger and scarier than he ever imagined. Now he's starting to wonder if anyone in the city is actually safe. He kept listening and realized the villagers were all talking about these coins, and since some guy outside the walls was collecting them, this whole situation just got way more dangerous. The heroes stood there with their jaws on the floor as they stared at the monster, totally clueless about the insane battle tearing the city apart and putting everyone in danger. Annalise suddenly froze and told everyone she heard a noise. The silence was super creepy, and her bad feeling put everyone on edge. She peeked down the hallway, totally ready for something to go. The princess was standing right there, and she was totally over it. She started complaining that Kai always does his own thing without telling anyone a single word. She was getting super annoyed because she just wanted to know. The princess begged Kai to explain what he was doing so she could actually help him, but he kept his plans a total secret from everyone. Out of nowhere, the girls realize someone just walked in, and they all freeze as they stare at the door, sensing that this person is about to flip the whole situation upside down. Johnson slammed the door open and screamed for Mrs. Rose, and the pure panic in his voice told everyone that something huge was about to go down. The girls whipped around at the exact same time and were totally shook. Their eyes went wide with pure panic and confusion as they stared him down. They just couldn't wrap their heads around why he was... Johnson stood right in the doorway, and his vibe was so heavy that everyone knew things were about to get seriously intense. Johnson apologized for barging in and explained the Central Guild sent him with some massive news that could change everyone's fate forever. Anna asked why the hero was so hyped, but the princess was just stoked he showed up, hoping he finally had a plan to fix their massive problem. Johnson started screaming for them to just forget about him, yelling that they had way bigger things to worry about than standing around and arguing. The girl gave Johnson a massive side-eye, looking totally stressed because she had no clue why he was acting so weird or what he was actually planning. They spun around and saw something so insane it left them totally frozen, and they all knew right then that their lives were never going to be the same. They came face to face with Touty, one of the 4 world demons, and everyone was terrified because this monster was a massive threat to everything alive, filling the air with a creepy energy that everyone started freaking out, screaming that Touty's seal was finally broken. Demons roared at the crowd, spreading pure terror and chaos everywhere. His voice sounded super scary and powerful, proving, just minutes before the monsters showed up, Kai watched the crowd outside the city walls, trying to read their vibes so he could figure out the best way to protect them and save the city from the... Everyone was totally confused about why he called them all together. But then, the hero started healing their wounds and recharging their energy to get them ready for the massive fight ahead. Seeing how much he knew that once they were back on their feet, they'd be strong enough to keep the monsters out, so he got them ready for a massive fight to survive and finally be free. Out of nowhere, these weird things started crawling out of the ground like slow tentacles, and it totally freaked everyone out. Crazy animals started popping out of the chutes, and they looked so wild and dangerous that everyone was caught between being totally shocked and straight up terrified. Suddenly, monkeys, tigers, and all kinds of wild animals swarmed the area, and the massive scale of the pack made everyone realize they were in huge trouble. Everyone was freaking out with their mouths wide open because this insane power was about to wreck everything they cared about. Our hero was sure these monsters were just some creepy things Teo cooked up. He knew that taking them down was basically impossible. Everyone was freaking out because the fight to stay alive was getting way more. He screamed that there was no way he could take on these monsters all by himself. He realized he needed a squad and a real plan if he wanted to stop the total destruction. It was clear that working together was the only way they'd survive and protect everyone. Ty told the crew they had to crush those monsters because they're heroes, and his speech got everyone so hyped to work together that they truly believed they could win. He shouted for everyone to stay brave and stand their ground no matter what. That one scream changed everything, giving everyone the massive boost they desperately needed. Now the heroes and the townspeople felt totally unstoppable. Everyone sprinted toward the city, but they slammed into an invisible wall at the gate, leaving them totally freaked out and trapped by a brand new problem. Kai said one of his guys put a massive invisible wall around the entire city. It's a super strong shield made just to keep all the demons out. This wall is the only reason everyone inside. That huge wall kept the demons trapped outside, so the city stayed safe while the fight went down. Everyone felt a massive wave of hope, knowing they actually had a real shot at winning. Now, the guild was totally losing it and felt like there was no hope left. Their whole plan was falling to pieces, and they knew they were in for a world of hurt. They were down to. They begged Lord Kai to let them live, but their survival was totally in the heroes' hands and depended on what they did next. The guild members started losing it, screaming and pointing fingers at each other. Things got super tense as their whole team started falling apart right in front of them. And while they were busy fighting, out of nowhere, a monster creeps up behind him with its massive jaws wide open, and the hero is way too slow to react before he's almost eaten alive. The monster snatched him up and swallowed him whole right in front of his friends, leaving them frozen in total shock as blood sprayed everywhere, and they realized they were completely doomed. Cider's terrified as the monster closes in, but he pulls out his spiked whip, yells that he's taking it down, and charges right at the beast. Our MC watched it all go down from the wall as Kai told them it was win or die, so they had to give it their all. They start hammering on the alarm bell, screaming that demons are attacking. Everyone is told to stay inside and lock their doors. The beastmen turn their heads, staring right at where the chaos is. Rose was totally lost on why the heroes were unsealing that legendary beast, and the guy she asked didn't have a clue either. But it looks like our MC took some cash outside the walls to go fight monsters. The princess looked super worried, saying if that threat was actually real, the hero's power wouldn't be enough to stop a total disaster. She told Johnson to protect the civilians at all costs. Then she hit up Arnold to get the Royal Army moving from Barcy. They were totally on board, but then she got some. They realized this guy was one of Kai Jiramekel's henchmen, and after saying he'd brought the people from the city, he just tossed them onto the dirt. Earl Getty, the mayor, and Ogra were all standing there when Johnson asked if the guy was finally awake, but a guard said the hunter who saw him totally fainted, and even Gear McCalla told them they didn't need any help and to stop doing extra stuff they weren't asked to do. The princess tried to argue back and stop him right there. One line out. Rule again. Input. Line 1. Astaroth adjusted his glasses and replied that she didn't need to worry. Line 2. While all that was happening, Cider was busy hacking through a bunch of monsters. He couldn't wrap his head around how things got so messed up. His guild was supposed to be Being a hero is way more than just a cool title. You need real guts to risk everything and stand up to the big bads, but he didn't realize that until it was way too late. He kept smashing through monsters, but it felt like they were never going to stop coming. He yelled at his friends to stay tough and not lose their cool. This was finally their big moment to fight. Suddenly, this creepy, dark energy burst out of the ground and totally freaked them out. They looked up and realized the real Touty was actually hovering right over their heads. Then, Cider and his crew stood there totally stunned, finally realizing he'd actually made it this far. Cider gulped as he watched these terrifying monsters pop up right in front of him. A massive snake suddenly slithered out from between those Toutius tentacles. It lunged straight at them. Out of nowhere, a beastman kicks her so hard she goes flying, leaving the entire guild in total shock. Right then, the rest of the beastmen suddenly jumped into the fight. Cider was totally confused about why they were helping. The boy told him they weren't actually on their side. Our hero asked if he was for real since these guys were literally selling beastmen, but he stood his ground, saying that if he just walked away, he'd be no better than. Their assistant said he was dead serious, so Kai decided they'd just leave the coin with the Hunters Guild. He told the guy he'd just watched the fight from right there, and the dude actually thanked him for it. Kai then shouted that they didn't need these fake heroes and should just Everyone watching from a distance was losing their minds over the fight at the walls, and the blushing princess was totally shocked to see the beastmen actually standing their ground against Touty. Sarayuba says if they wreck the source, the monsters are done for, so they need to go all in on it. But right then, our hero spots a guy lurking in the... He figured the guy was totally distracted by those small monsters and hadn't noticed him at all, maybe even being the mage who brought them back to life. But then, Touty screamed for Jer. He stood right on top of the beast and called the legend a total joke, but the monster just growled that he had to squash these annoying bugs first. Jirma told him to shut up and pulled out that creepy dark orb he found in the ruins, the sphere of dominance. He laughed and yelled that he hated to waste it, but he'd give it a shot. Then he slammed the orb right into the monster's head while it just stood there completely stunned. Crazy streaks of light started shooting out of his head. He was totally confused and had no clue what was going on. But the other guy just grinned and told him he was getting a massive power. Touty's face starts morphing as he opens wide, and when Sir Yupin sees his tail is back, she warns everyone to stay sharp because that snakehead is ready to strike. She swung with all her might and smashed 3 beastmen at the exact same time. They went flying off in every direction. The girl struggled to get back up while clutching her hand. Sira screamed. He leaped onto the snake's head and yelled for it to stop, but his move didn't do any damage at all. He saw everyone else caught in a massive brawl and had no... Just as he was about to get eaten by that beast, our hero swoops in and grabs him just in time. The girl is totally hyped and thanks him for everything. He tells her He waves his hand and orders everyone to get inside his barrier right now. His assistant shows up and does exactly what he's told. With a super serious look, he says He stood right in front of the monster with his sword ready, shouting that this was supposed to be a story about beastmen protecting their city, while German just glared at him, totally surprised that anyone was still left. Kai shuts his eyes and starts pulling his sword from its scabbard. Jirma screams at the big guy to finish him off fast and teach him a lesson. Kai tells him that he vanished instantly, unleashing his second sword form to shred every monster in his way while the crowd just watched in total disbelief. He moves with insane speed, landing a ton of hits on the Touty, who just stands there totally helpless, leaving the whole crowd completely speechless. Our hero sticks the landing right next to the monster while Jirma's scratching his head about the taunt. But as soon as Kai says it's gone, the whole beast just starts crumbling to pieces. In a split second, nothing was left but black smoke, and Jirma hit the dirt, completely shocked that he actually won with just one hit. Our hero stomps on the monster's remains and snaps that he's totally annoyed by the interference, glaring down with pure rage as he tells the fool not to expect even a drop of pity. Jirma started panicking and begged him to stop since he was giving up, claiming he didn't even have beef with him. But in his head, he felt like he was unbreakable, and that the guy was just a total idiot. Yada swears he'll spill everything he knows, but our hero just stays totally quiet. Right then, Jirma hides the sphere behind his back, thinking that if he plays his secret trump, Kai sighed and angrily snapped that he was hiding a sphere behind his back he had to use, promising that if the guy actually turned into something after transforming, he'd reward him by ending his life. Jirma jumps up drenched in sweat and slams the orb against his chest, yelling that this is exactly what he planned as he orders it to take over his mind. And suddenly, a dark mist starts exploding out of the ball in every direction. He starts laughing like a total maniac as white streaks leak from the orb on his face. Then his glasses fly off as a mask grows in their place, and he sticks his tongue out because he's never felt power this insane before. Our MC just wouldn't stop yapping, so Jirma screamed that he was out of time and attacked, using his magic to force a massive explosion to blow up right in the guy's hand. Kai shrugged off the hit like it was nothing, totally clueless about what just happened, while his enemy started trash-talking and throwing even more power at him, screaming for it to break, grab, and tear him to shreds. But none of those attacks even touched him, because even that spirit word curse is just magic, and if the magic is weak, it's not a threat at all. The kid started to wonder if this was really all he could do. Jirma was totally confused why his powers flopped yet again. This was supposed to be the literal power of the spirit. He's trying to figure out why he's so helpless, but the hero just decks him in one move, tells him he's weak, and blasts him straight into the forest. He slammed into a tree and tried to gasp out some words, but with a massive, jagged wound in his side, Kai just looked at him like he was a boring little bug. He said there'd be a huge price to pay for getting in the way. Then he called for Velza, who showed up right on cue. Kai ordered him to rip out every secret the Ma. He followed the order, turned to the crowd looking at him like a total legend, and told everyone they were heading back just as the sun started to rise. The princess met up with him and, with a little smile, told him she was honestly so happy he was the one guarding her. Kai told her this was only temporary, and even though Zhavushka said she got it, she's sticking by him for as long as they're together. Kai realized she was totally reckless and super weird, making him wonder if he even liked her that much after everything with Reina, especially when he thought back to his cafe chat with the princess. He's got a major soft spot for both Rena and Rose, and it seems like Kai Heinemann's old feelings are still sticking around even after a massive 100,000 years. He promised to stick around until they find a new guardian, figuring things wouldn't really change that much since he's still living his best life with his friends and doing whatever he wants. His friends were all just chilling right there next to him. Feeling totally satisfied, he was asked if he actually liked the cake Rose made. He told them it was honestly super delicious. There was nothing. Over in the capital of Amelia Aramgard, a sudden scream rings out, making the guy walking down the long hallway totally tense up. Kai's childhood friend Rena Groff was super hyped to spill the news that Rose met a guy and they were already heading to Barcelona. Ty's childhood friend Kit Steinberg is a total magic master, but he was completely lost until the girl shoved a paper in his face and told him to read the letter to Rose. He saw her handwriting and knew she wasn't lying, and Rena added that she was worried about them and they had to get to Barcelona. She spun around and bolted to find them a carriage right away. Keach tried to hold her back, asking if she even understood the danger she was in. Like, what would happen if she actually... The grower just grinned and said a disguise would make everything fine, so he told him to get ready and come along, leaving the guy standing there in shock because he knew the teacher was definitely going to bust them. Right then, lightning cracked over the Lord's mansion in the middle of that creepy ghost town. Inside, the walls were covered in weird, messy splotches of paint. A guy was just chilling in a chair, totally focused on reading his book. Then, out of nowhere, he slammed it shut. He dropped the bomb that Germa was gone for good, leaving everyone totally stunned and asking if it was actually for real. He admitted he was definitely fading from this world, and when someone asked if there was really a guy in Papua who could take him down, he said yeah. He stood up and decided their next move, and when the girl asked if they were done with their business, he told her that could wait, because they had to wipe every single one of them out. The man sent Vinegar to find whoever crushed Germa and told Salt to hurry up and activate the ruins. Sugar and Pepper are heading out to crush Popra, and they're not letting anyone stand in their way because losing is totally off the table. Back at the cave base, two guys in black cloaks reported to the girl on the throne, and she looked totally fed up once she realized even the Taiyat couldn't handle the hero. The guy broke down in tears, saying he watched until the very end, but number 33 never showed up, and even though he wanted to save Neil, he was terrified it was already too late, making the girl grip her chair in pure shock. She grabbed her head in shock, realizing one of Dark King Ash Media Neil's top guys had vanished, but she forced herself to stay strong to finish the job while secretly hoping she'd be. She suddenly stood up and told everyone to listen up, demanding they keep searching for that one special person needed to trigger the activation. Everyone did exactly what she said, while she silently prayed for someone in another world to watch her finish the mission so she could finally join her. Meanwhile, way down in the shadows, these powerful gods from Babylon were all meeting up. One of them announced that they were finally done scouting the ruins. They actually found the massive gate to let their demon. Pazuzu from the evil army grinned and said he'd head to that world first to open the gates for Lady Tiamat, and she told him to hurry it up because she was done waiting around. Reina and Keach are super hyped to go find the main character, while Ko heads out on his own path, swearing to take out anyone who dares to stand in his way. The demon swore she'd protect Ash Media no matter what, and Tiamat was so hyped she started rubbing her hands together, ready to finally get in on the action. Our hero slung his sword over his back and hit the road with the princess, while the beastmen waved goodbye as their carriage rolled away. Right after they left Kabura, Arnold caught up to let them know they're stuck hanging out in the bars for 2 weeks until their capital passes are ready, and then he just took off. He's still stuck in the city for a few days to wrap up some business. It's a 2-week delay, but that's actually a total win. Our main guy has... Right in the middle of the round plaza sits the Hunters Guild, a bunch of bars perfectly placed between the capital and the forest for anyone looking to hunt. Hunters from every corner of the globe are flooding into Hars. In a place like this, there's never a shortage of jobs to do. That's why the Hunters Guild is... Kai dreams of traveling the world with zero limits, so he's got to get a hunter's license to start making fast cash. As he walks up to the building, he looks up and spots a guy staring down at him from a window. He figures Rose and the rest of the group have probably found a place to stay by. He walked right into the massive hall where all the hunters were doing their own thing. These guys are split into 6 different ranks, going from total newbies all the way up to superhumans. You climb. If you want to climb past rank C, you've got to crush some extra exams, and once you're signed up, you can grab any quest that fits your level right off the guild board. He rang the bell at the counter and told them straight up he was there to sign up as a hunter. A girl with long dark hair stepped out, flashed him a sweet smile, and told him she'd totally help him get registered. She tells him the sign-up fee is 10,000 auras. She asks if he's cool with that price. He knows he's got the cash somewhere deep in his item box, and she was totally blown away by his storage box, but he just played it cool and told her she was wrong, secretly realizing he'd forgotten just how rare that skill actually is. He handed over the cash while she apologized and took the payment, but Kai realized he was being way too flashy and knew he had to keep his rare loot and skills a total secret to stay out of trouble. She tosses a ball onto the table and says she needs to check his stats and powers, telling him to just touch it so all his info pops up. He usually keeps his stats at a solid 100 using those sealed god gloves, but since this new gift is such a perfect match, he's actually down to nerf himself all the way back. He decided to cap his power at a basic 12 to keep things low-key. Just to be safe, he also put on a ring that hides his true abilities. He held... She totally lost it and screamed to the whole room that the gift was the biggest piece of trash ever. Her shouting made everyone stop what they were doing and stare straight at our main guy. Real. He just shrugged and said it's no wonder she's shocked. But then a hunter points him out and calls him the most useless guy on the planet. One guy warns Liga to knock it off or he's snitching to the boss, shouting as he leaves that defending a traitor is a waste of time, and Mia is way too uptight. She kept apologizing for spilling the secret, but he was actually hyped because looking weak meant way less drama for him. He told her not to sweat it, and that he was actually glad she spread the word, so when the confused girl asked if he liked being made fun of, he just told her to finish the registration. She gave him a smirk and told him to flex his skills and stats for everyone to see. But the second she saw his actual power level, she totally lost her cool and started yelling. Every hunter in he realized his stats looked super suspicious, so he played it off by saying he forgot to take off his power-boosting ring, and after sliding the fake ring off, he asked her for... Walking out of the building, he couldn't help but think that was way too many questions for a simple sign-up. He remembered her telling him that he was officially all set. She handed him a temporary ID card, but warned him to keep that power-boosting ring hidden and stay extra careful with it. He started walking down the long road feeling like it would never end. But suddenly a group of guys surrounded him, and he finally realized what the administrator was actually talking about. Just a bit ago, inside Johnson's top-floor office, a B-rank hunter named Ilsa Harnish was super annoyed and asked why she had to waste her time watching that. She's an A-class hunter who's so cracked, she actually turned down an S-rank promotion because she felt babied, and now she's keeping a close watch on the sky. They told her explaining was a waste of time and she just had to see it for herself, so she rushed down to the lobby where he was waiting right before they shoved her out the door. While heading down the stairs, she decided she'd take the deal for a massive payday, and that's when she spotted our MC talking to the admin. She heard everyone gossiping about how he was the biggest loser on the planet and way too weak to ever do anything big. One guy says there's a ring that gives a massive power boost, so his buddy asks if it's some legendary treasure they can bring to their boss, and that's when Ilsa watched the crowd swarm the kid and finally started wondering why Johnson was so obsessed with keeping him guarded. One of the thugs demands he hand over that power-boosting ring, and she finally sees they're straight-up robbing him without feeling bad at all, which makes her remember that weird call. Mia told her the guy just took off and begged her to keep an eye on him because she was super worried. Ilsa knew there was no way she could just let this kid get hurt. But right as she decided to help, one of the thugs reached out and snatched him up. She thought he was a goner, but then Kai kicked the guy so hard he went flying, leaving her totally stunned and confused. In a total flash, he sent every single attacker flying and then walked right up to the girl who'd been watching him. She scrambled behind a pillar, panicking because he could actually see through her invisibility, right when Johnson showed up and asked if she'd seen anything. Ilsa had no idea why he called it useless. It wasn't just about raw strength or crazy gear. There was something way deeper going on. The guy just smirked and told her that. She looked at the MC and asked if he wanted this guy to handle Barr's dirty work, but right then, the dude caught them staring, and Johnson warned that they had a major score to settle before their big fight. He's terrified of making him mad, so he dumped the mission on her, but she had no clue what he was really up to. A few days later, inside a fancy mansion, this guy is absolutely fuming and asking if they're always going to run away like total cowards. He told them they'd jump him with a whole squad every day, but that ring is way too OP for them to handle, and the boss just screamed at them to stop making excuses. It was Mishiro, the hero and leader of the Merhig Guild, and he was totally fuming as he told them they weren't needed and demanded to know if they'd found out anything. The guy says it's Kai Heinemann, the dude with the most trash power in the world. Word is he's the same guy from that crazy Heberg incident everyone's buzzing about. He asked for the full scoop, and the kid said everyone thinks the beastmen killed the monsters, but the proof shows it was actually Kai who took them out. Mishiro says his ring is so busted it can actually take down one of the 4 legendary beasts, but the boy thinks there's more to it than that. Everyone started whispering that he was totally unbeatable, but the guy just stayed quiet and finished his drink. Then he crushed the bottle until it literally exploded and screamed for everyone to shut up, knowing that if he got a ring like that, even those annoying boars would be possible. He smirked, realizing his assistant was actually trying to outplay him, so he figured if he couldn't win with raw power, he'd just have to find a weakness, especially since Mishiro just laughed at his own weakness since he's totally fine with playing dirty, and now the crew is going to strip this guy of everything to make their guild legendary. A few days later, the Barcelona Carnival is popping off, and while our hero is strolling with the girls, a cheerful dad tells him to hurry it up. The guy tells her to watch out. He realizes she's totally planning to hit up every single food stall. Mia just laughs and says she's way too cute and full of energy. Let's try to make it punchier. He told her Anna made the outfit and begged her to keep it clean. Then Mia offered to wipe her face, so they both decided to grab. The boy figured Fath was finally warming up to them since she was sharing her food, but Astaroth was just confused how she could even eat with so many people watching. He spotted his assistant standing right there and just played it cool, saying he was only looking for something interesting. Since some creeps had been stalking the master for days, they decided to lay low, including that guy Shirayuki. He told her to track them down and see exactly what they were planning. She had to grab every single detail she could find. He was leaving the next move totally up to her. The girls were having a blast hitting up every food stall in the city, but as it got late, the crowds finally started heading home. He thanked her a ton for playing with Faf, and she told him she actually had a total blast too. Rose is in no condition to go on vacation, and since Anna would never ditch her to go have fun, Mia just smiles and says it's basically like having a little sister. He remembered Faf was super hyped for the carnival, but Kai warned him the entire city is like a massive playground where you can get lost in a heartbeat. Mia offered to show them the holiday, which was a total lifesaver, and our main guy really hoped she'd get to hang out with Faf again. She smiled and agreed, saying she wanted to talk to Kai too, but when he didn't catch it and asked what she said, she just told him it was nothing. She told him he acted way younger than he looked. He laughed and said the guild papers list him as a 15-year-old. But get this, he's actually over 100. The girl told her they could split up there, gave Faf a quick head pat, and smiled as she said goodnight and promised to see her tomorrow. They all watched her walk away, and Astaroth noticed that the bright sunset made the color in her cheeks totally disappear. He felt kind of bad for her, and even though Kai tried to explain himself, the guy just threw his hands up while some creepy dudes watched the girl from behind the trees. Later that night, the squad met up in a huge hall, and Kai realized these cards were actually planning to use hostages to blackmail him. Everyone stared at Shiroyuki as he confirmed the news, and his face went totally dark. His face twisted into a look of pure rage, making the girls huddle together in fear as they wondered if these were the same hunters who'd been stalking the main character for years. He let out a sigh and said he kicks them back every time they show up, while Asterov agreed those guys seriously never give up. Kai said he didn't wreck them just to keep things quiet, but now he's thinking it might have been worth the noise, especially since Shiroyuki revealed they just snatched Mia. He glared at the headband in her hands and snapped, asking if she just stood there and watched the whole thing. He knew she wasn't the type to wait for orders, so he demanded. Then Nemesis, one of the goddesses working for Kai, shows up and tells him she'll handle everything because her team is already tracking the hostages on the map and keeping them totally safe. She could have just told them to stop since she was already going to save everyone. Our main guy stood up and thanked them for all their hard work. Then he decided he was going to take care. Then he tells her he's heading out, and the princess starts thinking about how the Four Saints Guild totally betrayed the people they were supposed to protect, so she decides it might finally be. He grabs his sword and tells her he's got this handled on his own, and Nemesis just smirks because she knew her master would say exactly that. She bowed and called them the enemies of all women who would never be forgiven, then asked to be the ones to plan exactly how to wreck those cards for good. He told her he didn't know what she was planning, but if it meant trashing those cards, he was totally down to help. She just smiled and said the show was about to. A bit earlier, Mia was just vibing and humming on her walk, but she suddenly turned bright red when she realized she'd been thinking about our main guy all day, even though she's put him through so much drama that now she just spends her days worrying and keeping a close eye on him, and eventually, it finally clicked that she actually loves being his girlfriend. Her head was spinning because this total power trip had to end, so Ilsa needs to stick to the cameras and stop meeting him in person. She sat on a barrel staring at the stars, feeling totally crushed that she might never see him again. Out of nowhere, a bunch of guys jump her from behind and start tying her up. In the middle of the chaos, her headband falls off and gets left behind. Meanwhile, the heroes, they hauled her into a total wreck of a building and slammed her onto the floor, but as she looked around, she realized her body wouldn't even budge. She was trapped in a run. She looked at his face and realized it was actually Master Ma. She demanded to know what his big plan was. Attacking guild workers like this is a huge crime that no one gets away with. They told her she was only there to punish him, but she said they just met, and she was actually the bait to lure him out, knowing he's so kind he'll definitely show up. She was totally lost and asked why they'd even kidnap her if he wasn't going to pick up, but they told her to stop lying since they already knew she was his girlfriend, and her face turned beet red as she realized this wasn't about her earlier mistake at all, and she was left totally confused trying to figure out what he actually meant. The guy smirked because her face totally gave away that the engagement was real, and now he couldn't wait to start messing with her. The men closed in from all sides, leaving her completely trapped and terrified since she had no idea what they were about to do. She was shaking with fear as one guy reached out, telling her to enjoy her final moments while they toyed with her, and when she screamed for him to stay back, he just smirked because Then he ripped the clothes off the crying girls while everyone cheered him on, and Mascaro bragged about how he couldn't wait to see the look on his face when he finds out. The guy grabs her by the chin and demands she scream even louder, and as Mia shakes in terror, she can only think about the hero, knowing it's her fault they even noticed him. She finally gets brave, screams for him to back off, and headbutts him right in the face. His nose starts gushing blood, and he immediately hits her right back. He said finishing her off now would be way too boring, so he actually apologized and claimed he was being gentle, but as the girl started to black out, she just prayed the main character would never find her. Out of nowhere, this guy jumps in and snatches the dude's hand. The girl is freaking out because they were never supposed to cross paths. He's the absolute last person but deep down, she was actually dying to see him. One of the cards let out a scream, totally shocked that Kai even showed up. The girl just shut her eyes while the tears. Our MC is so furious he crushes the guy's hand until it starts bending out of shape, wishing he'd just disappear, while his insane energy blasts a hole right through the roof. Our hero was absolutely fuming as he looked down at the girl on the ground, and nobody there could even figure out how he got there so fast. Masiro screamed at his guys to surround him, but he didn't even care as he sat down next to Miea and apologized for making her wait. He wrapped her in a white robe that automatically reflects every physical and magic attack, telling her she could finally rest since he was the one who dragged her into this mess. The enemy started closing in on him. He had all the time in the world to kill. He marched right up and stood directly in their faces. You could tell he was totally ticked off just by. Everyone was losing their minds seeing him take on a whole army solo, and Mashiro was sure that ring was the secret to his insane power. He wanted him even more now, and just as he raised his axe to strike, the hero's intense stare stopped him dead in his tracks. He was totally spooked and ready to bail, but he didn't even get the chance because the MC was already right behind him, asking where he was going after getting an invite. He's talking about a letter saying they've got the girl, and he needs to get to an abandoned church in the southeast right now. They're swapping the hostage for a magic power-up ring. He has to stay totally still and not fight back. If he messes up, the hostage is as good as dead. The assistant was absolutely fuming at the princess's behavior, and Astroth noticed that these bandits were actually moving crazy fast. Kai told Nemesis he had no clue what she was up to, but he'd show up anyway. She said everything was going exactly like her script, and he told the others to stay back. He shoved his sword right at the sweating guard boss and demanded to know if he really thought he'd walk away in one piece after making him this mad. The guy was totally panicking and couldn't even find his words. His goons just stood there with their swords, looking completely clueless. He was stressing so hard that the veins in his eyes. He suddenly warps right in front of her, laughing that things are different now as he pulls her into his arms. He flashed his hand to show off the teleportation ring's power, bragging that his ability-boosting ring was joining the collection next. Kai's head is spinning because he can't even tell what's real or fake. But he's got bigger problems since this guy is holding a knife to the girl's throat and screaming for him to hand over the ring or she's done for. The kid pulled off his gloves and warned him he was going to regret this, asking if he was ready, while Astaroth and Nemesis freaked out seeing their master actually remove those god-sealing gloves. Astaroth bursts into the room and screams that he's bailing, so Kai just tells him to go ahead. Mashiro is left standing there trying to figure out what's even going. Kaya's rival suddenly bowed and snatched the sleeping girl right out of the man's arms, leaving him totally frozen in shock at what was going down. He screamed that jumping him from the shadows was a total cheap shot, so our hero just tossed him the ring and told him to take the prize he wanted so badly, reminding the guy that since. Mashiro caught the ring in total shock, and his assistant just grinned, confirming it was definitely the same one. He slid the ring on, totally stunned that this was the secret to all that power, and now he wasn't just the strongest in the kingdom, he was the strongest in the whole world. Kai basically said he was no different from the guys who just rely on their gifts, and that even Cider was a way better warrior than them. Masiro's ring starts glowing as he tells the guy to shut up, shouting that he's not scared of anything anymore before charging straight at him with his axe. He told all his goons to jump him and make him suffer. They all charged in at once to take him down. Mashiro just swung his axe and started laughing like a total maniac. Our guy just stood there totally relaxed, showing off the real one-sword style as he wiped them all out with one clean hit from his first form. Everyone nearby just started falling to pieces, and Mashiro was totally confused because he didn't even see the guy land a hit. So while the whole crowd was screaming in terror, our MC just stood. Our MC literally took his fingers off, and as the guy knelt there shaking, he terrifiedly asked if he'd been handed a fake. Kai said the ring was exactly what he needed, especially since he wasn't even wearing any power-up gear yet. The guy is terrified and starts praying for a miracle, but our hero just swings his blade and tells him he's way too strong to lose to a loser like him, and just like that, massive. His magic blasted across the whole building, lighting it up in crazy colors. When the light faded, the building was totally gone, leaving nothing but smoke. Every single enemy was face down on the ground. Kai summons Belzette, who pops up right behind him in a flash. The kid orders him to give these guys a taste of pure terror. He's supposed to push them to the absolute edge. Nemesis stepped right out of the shadows and told her master she was super into what was happening, and she even brought some guests along for the ride. Johnson and Ilsa suddenly popped right out of her shadow. Kai let out a big sigh once he realized who they were. He told them they were all heading straight to the Hunters Guild. Marhig is basically a dead man for all the crimes he committed. And as our hero looks at Nemesis, He demands to know why she let the map kidnap the girl while reaching his hand toward her sleeping face. Nemesis said he had to be the one to save Miss Mia alone, and they were just setting the stage for him. But the kid was totally lost and didn't get it at all. Astaroth. She finally loses it and screams at him to take the girl back to her dorm, but he stays totally chill and asks if the guild members should just do it instead. She said they were going to be stuck at the crime scene for a long time, so he had to step up and take her away himself, and since everyone was on her side, our MC totally agreed. He tossed the girl onto his back and told him to start cleaning up. Looking at the scorched ground everywhere, Nemesis finally realized how insane the Master's real power was. But Aster, she's totally stunned and asks if the Master really has 0 enemies left, and he agrees, saying this guy is just like his old master. As he watched the guy walk away, he realized he needed a real reason to stay in this world besides just fighting, especially now that the sun was finally starting to rise. He's carrying her past the streetlights when she suddenly wakes up in his arms, so he looks back to ask if she's awake and tells her he's getting her home right now. He apologized for freaking her out and asked if she was in pain, and she just blushed and shyly told him she was fine. She was so grateful she didn't even have the words to thank him. But he just brushed it off, telling her he didn't need any thanks. After all, he's the... She leaned in close and felt super happy, but the guy was totally clueless, so she just blushed and told him her dorm was right there and she could walk the rest of the way alone. She stood up and told him she knew he didn't want any thanks, but she was still so grateful he came for her, giving him a massive hug while he just said it was a... She kept holding him tight while he just stood there totally frozen, and the sun started to set as they stayed like that. A bit later, she waves goodbye and promises they'll see each other again, and he just gives her a big smile back. Nemesis is totally blushing while watching the screen, muttering that he should have walked her to the door, while Astaroth just watches him looking super annoyed. She said just stepping inside would be cool, and he was totally down, but then Ilsa nervously spoke up saying she needed to talk, making them both whip their heads around to look at her. Nemesis is super confident that their fate is tied to the heroes, and they promise not to touch anything the Master wants to keep safe. They vanished into the shadows and told the shocked girl not to sweat it, but before she could even open her mouth, they were totally gone. Johnson realized he totally forgot to thank them, but then he mentioned he'd asked Kai to help him wipe out the corruption in the Hunters Guild, and it looks like they just stumbled into... Their cameras proved his power is basically infinite, and while the girl was totally freaked out, he still came through to save Mia. He said he knew him as his old friend's son, and even though he's changed, his heart is still the same. Plus, he mentioned that she also thinks the hero and his crew aren't actually bad guys. Back in the city, the princess spots him through the window and is totally relieved to see he's back safe and sound. Her assistant was super annoyed, complaining that even though he saved a regular person, he made way too much of a scene and totally forgot he's supposed to be a professional royal guard. The princess tells Anna that he's just a temporary guard she hired for help, but she totally knows Anna was up all night worrying about him, which makes Anna blush and claim Anna grumbled that he always just does whatever he wants. The princess was honestly just super worried about him, and that's all there was to it. Rose saw the girl was totally exhausted, and, since it was already morning, she told everyone to get some rest, and while the princess passed out the second her head hit the pillow, Anna stayed wide awake with her mind racing. She waited for the perfect moment to sneak out, and while standing by the window, she realized the princess totally trusts him, but she's not falling for it. Anna's speed walking across a lonely bridge feeling totally crushed, when she suddenly stops dead in her tracks, and her mind starts going a mile a minute. She leans over the edge of the bridge and lets out a massive scream, begging Kai to forgive her. She's not having it and insists that the king and Rose aren't the ones who caused this whole mess. Anna slams into the dining room while everyone's eating, and Mrs. Rose just stares at her, totally confused. Kai explains that in a land full of hate and poverty, the greedy nobles are so power-hungry that the king and Rose can't even step up to lead or take responsibility. Anna is told to go cool off, but she's totally fuming that they're being called useless when Rose is just trying to protect everyone. She keeps saying sorry as she bolts out of the room and sprints down the long hallway, looking back one last time at the kids who are still sitting there like statues. Kai figures it's better to give Anna some space and get right back to their big talk about politics. Another cute girl bursts into the room shouting that it's snack time, so Ro tells everyone to take a breather. She's dying for some cookies, So the older girl says she'll bake a massive batch right now if she helps out. Rose takes one last look out the window before heading out, figuring it's best to just leave Anna alone since she's in such a bad state. Kai's right in the middle of his drink when the girl drops the news that they're totally out of tea for their cookies. Rose gives a charming wink and tells Kai to make sure Anna picks up some regular tea. Anna's just standing on the bridge staring into the distance when she suddenly hears a massive scream right behind her. It's actually an old lady and a little kid pointing up at a massive statue of an ancient god that makes them look tiny. Grandma explains that in this kingdom, your whole worth is decided by the blessing you get from Ares, the god of war, because that power is the only thing people actually care about. The kid shouts that he wants a legendary gift to become a knight, and he gets a total blessing for it. Beastmen without blessings are treated like they're at the bottom of the food chain and have to follow every single rule the Hyverco people make. If you don't have a blessing, you're basically treated like a total loser and a straight-up traitor. Anna remembers being raised to believe the Earth Kingdom's noble rules are the only way to live, especially since she's from a legendary line of holy knights and high-class royalty. Anna's starting to seriously wonder if she's even on the right side. The harder she tries to be a perfect knight, the more she feels like something is totally off. Suddenly, it's just some guy showing off his gear to a bunch of buyers. A crowd starts gathering around with huge grins on their faces. Everyone is clearly having a blast watching the whole show. Anna was always freaked out by this huge clash between the good values she was raised with and how cruel the real world actually is. Anna rushes in and grabs his hand to stop the next blow, but as she remembers protecting Rose, she's totally freaked out by what might happen next. She just can't wrap her head around how anyone could treat a living, breathing person like they're total trash. The guy doesn't see the problem with whipping an animal, but Anna shuts him down by saying people are still people. The guy snaps at her to back off so he can finish his sales pitch, especially since the customers are getting super annoyed that she's ruining the deal. He calls them out for being the ones from the kingdom who treated beastmen like property instead of people, and it's honestly crazy that they're complaining about discrimination when they're the... Out of nowhere, Kai jumps in front of Anna to shield her, telling everyone she just doesn't understand how the world works yet. She's totally losing her cool all over again. The guy puts his poker face back on and calmly tells them he doesn't want any drama messing with his business, since he just wants to show his goods to the crowd who are actually loving the show. Kai pulls a bag stuffed with cash right out of his pocket, hands it over, and tells the guy there's 80,000 eagles inside. The second guy grabs the bag without even thinking, smirking that this is just the down payment. The seller brushes the girl's hair aside, bragging that this silver baby beast is super rare, and he's charging a cool $2 million for it. Anna's jaw hit the floor when she saw that much cash, wondering how a guy like him even got his hands on it. Kai swears he's gonna pay up later, but until then, they better not lay a single finger on that kid. Now that he's hooked, the guy gives them 30 days to pay everything back, or he's keeping the 80,000 and their love for good. He tosses a cloak over the kid's shoulders, declares the deal is done, and says the boy is basically high-value cargo until the trade-off. Kai didn't even try to argue or make a deal, he just went along with it right away. He just tosses a lazy thanks over his shoulder and walks off with the kid. She looks back at the only people who can save her, but she can only watch as they get further and further away every single second. As soon as the crowd cleared out, Anna lunged at Kai, totally losing it because he actually tried to make a deal right in front of the kingdom's knight. Kai says it was the fastest way to save the kid since everything happening in the kingdom was actually legal. The guy asks Anna if she's seriously down to put Rose in that much danger. He made the best call to keep the kid safe, and once Anna finally chilled out, she totally agreed with him. As he heads out, Kai yells back that he's totally confused by tea, he's got zero cash, and Rosa is still expecting him to buy her favorite snack. Anna loses her cool and calls Kay a total moron for blowing all their money on some random slave and leaving them with absolutely nothing. Kai fires back that fixing this country is way harder than it looks, and there's no way anyone can do it all by themselves. He turns back with a grin and tells Anna she did awesome, finally using her name for the first time and leaving her totally confused about how to feel. They make a super quick shopping run and then rush right back to Rose. They filled Rose in the second they arrived, and she was totally floored by the insane price tag. Rose jumps in and says she's totally down with his plan. Anna drops into a chair and nervously admits she saw the whole thing go down. Kai warns that this could blow up into a massive scandal or even put their lives in danger. He asks her how to make that much cash in just 30 days since he can't touch the treasury, and Rose says she's got a plan. She starts by offering to sell a valuable family heirloom from her hunter uncle, since it's worth a ton of cash and doesn't involve the people's taxes at all. Rose says you can score some serious cash if you make it to the finals of the royal tournament in Lusahale, which only happens once every 4 years. Kai's officially entered the sacred martial arts tournament, but he feels like he's walked straight into a trap. He refused to sell his uncle's ring, so now he's forced to fight in the tournament. Rose is totally sure he's got this in the bag, but after checking the rules, he realizes this whole tournament is super sketchy, and one tiny mistake will get him kicked out for good. He honestly hates it when people trust him for no reason at all. Just before the first fight kicks off, a massive buff guy who's literally double Kai's size shows up right next to him. He wants to know exactly how much power this guy is packing. He just gives them a tiny little smirk. The tall guy asks who he's fighting, and Kai steps up to give him his name. Zach introduces himself and says he's in Group B31. Then the other guy calmly drops his own group number right back. The guy smirks and says he'll see them in the finals if they actually make it that far, and Kai tells him he's looking forward to it too. Then they both split up and head off in totally different directions. Kai realizes right then and there that things are about to get really interesting. Inside Beswell's mansion in a creepy ghost town, the girl walks into the office and announces she's finally uncovered every single secret about Kai Heinemann. She straight up admits that she didn't understand a single thing. The guys ask why her scouting skills failed, and she tells them her supervision totally cut out the second Kai took off his glove. She saw the church blow up with her own eyes and says he took down one of the 4 big guilds all by himself. The guy asks her one more time, totally doubting that she actually saw anything. The guy starts cracking up, but she just tells him she's been watching his every move anyway. This mysterious dude in a hat thinks Kai is actually on their side. This dude says he's gonna start by slicing right through Kaiser Kyle's heel. Then she stabs the picture of Kai and Anna with everything she's got. Kai remembers the girl's face and realizes this payday is the perfect way to gain the experience he needs to live life on his own terms as a hunter. Let's be real, sometimes you need a mountain of cash just to survive. He knows he can bank some serious cash at the tournament, but he's low-key stressing about staying out so late. Rose says Arnold is stuck cleaning up the massive mess from what just happened, so he can't come back yet. They aren't allowed back in the capital until he's right there with them, acting as their guard. Kai's starting to think he's the reason the whole cart accident even happened. The girls settle him down, telling him he didn't just save their lives, but he actually saved a ton of other people too. Kai knows he's falling right into her trap, but he's totally broke and this is the only way to get paid fast. He thinks he's finally signed up, so now he's ready to go find Rose and the rest of the squad. Out of nowhere, someone yells at the guy from right behind him. Everyone sees the card in Kai's hand, and they're totally shocked that he's actually one of the fighters. He remembers those guys and realizes he's got to bail from the city right now. These guys showed up to make their school look top tier, but they started hating on Kai the second they found out about his special gift. He walks out, telling them he's done with their school's tech and they've got nothing left to say to him. The guy in the suit screams that Kai is a total embarrassment to the school's reputation. They get him to chill out, telling him Kai is going to lose in the most embarrassing way possible, and isn't even worth their time. Kai can't even wrap his head around the fact that he's got to fight people this crazy in the qualifying rounds. They keep yelling behind him about all the epic stuff they're gonna do next. 2 days fly by, and it's finally time for the first round of the Sacred Martial Arts Tournament qualifiers. First up, they're splitting everyone into groups of 100 people each. The gong rings and the fight is officially on. Kai tightens the bandage he dropped 10,000 eagles on right before the fight kicked off. Before the match even begins, Kai sizes up the competition and sees they're all just total rookies with no big names in sight. Kai's trying to figure out a win while staying under the radar, and even though it's a total hassle, this is his one-way ticket to the next round. Out of nowhere, a voice Kai totally recognizes calls out from the side, and he whips his head around to look. The students start beefing over who's actually strong enough to take on Kai. He figures that starting out with 3 students and Heinemann is the perfect way to kick things off. The students start screaming at each other, accusing everyone of trying to steal their spotlight. In one smooth move, the kid slices the bandages right off his enemy's shoulders. The rest of them are just standing there trying to figure out who's going to make the first move. Kai walks to the edge of the stage and squats down to hand the host the bandages. But she's totally shocked because the fight only lasted a single minute. The announcer is totally shocked when he spots the bandage on Kaizan's hand. The kid shouts out his score and asks if that's enough to make the cut. The host quickly scans the list and says sorry for the crazy interruption. Kai gets the news that he's moving on to the next round while his rivals just stand there looking totally confused. The fans are leaning way out of their seats in total shock, and they can't even believe what they're seeing. Aaron's the organizer, so he knows exactly what kind of guy he's dealing with. Everyone's saying his only talent is being totally average, but there's no way that's actually true. The organizer realizes that's actually Chi under that new look, and starts wondering what he's even doing there. Kai is showing off the kind of insane skill that only a tiny handful of people can actually reach. Aaron thinks the dude's power was just a big lie to keep other groups from stealing him away. People say Kai was kicked out of the school family because of his powers, but it makes zero sense why they'd ditch someone so insanely talented. Aaron says that since Kai is officially out of the school, he can just swoop in and take the whole place for himself without any trouble. The tournament boss was honestly done with all these weak kids, but Kai's potential is so crazy that he's definitely going to become a top-tier warrior for the kingdom. Aaron thinks the finale just got way more hype. Later that night, an angry scream echoed out, swearing that Kai was finally gonna pay. He's got no clue what kind of trick he just used. The students face their teacher and swear they only lost because Kai cheated by using some weird gadget to snatch their headbands. The teacher gives them a total death stare and shuts down every single idea they have. The students are totally panicking and want to take down that dirty liar, but suddenly, a voice rings out from nowhere. The guy steps up to fight him one-on-one, determined to show everyone that he's a total fake. He says they're gonna clear the school's name together, and the whole crowd is about to see it all happen. Everyone else is totally on board with him. Everyone's putting their faith in Riku and just waiting for him to take the win. Right then, another scream rings out from inside one of the bars. Meet Rygeister, a low-level D-rank hunter who's just grabbing a drink. He's constantly trash-talking Kai for being a total loser, saying Mia is the only one who actually saw any potential in him. Riga's partner Hook even points out that they've been acting super close lately. He screams that he's better at everything and it's totally unfair, letting all that bitterness finally explode. They tell the guy to go sleep it off, but he starts acting totally wild, screaming and swearing while everyone tries to get him to chill out. His buddy tries to fix the mess by telling everyone that his friend is just super drunk. Hook heads out, telling Riga he should probably just go home too. Out of nowhere, another guy walks up and fills his empty mug back up with wine. She sits down, introduces herself, and tells them she just moved to the city. Raga introduces himself, and the man admits he's been doing some digging and thinks Raga is the absolute best choice to lead the Bal Seguld team. The guy finally spills why he's so interested, revealing he wants him to break into an ancient temple hidden deep in the Silk Forest. Raga is totally shocked by this crazy request because even top-tier A-rank hunters are terrified of this temple. But Soul just confirms it's the real deal since this place is one of the most mysterious and unexplored dungeons ever. The guy admits he's just not strong enough for that old temple yet, but his new buddy tells him rumors about hidden treasure inside that would be the perfect gift for the girl. Saul hands Riga a special amulet, explaining that this is exactly what he needs to finally become a C-rank hunter. She's complaining that the guy won't play with her, and now she's just totally bored out of her mind. Rose says he's been grinding through qualifying tournaments so much lately that he's barely had any time to actually play. The little girl feels bummed out because she wants to cheer on Kai, but they'd stick out way too much and can't be there in person. Anna shouts out to Rose. She says Kai crushed the second round, and the big round 3 finals are going down tomorrow. This kid is totally about to win it all and walk away with a massive 3 million eagle jackpot. Chilang Widley admits this is way more than they were actually expecting. Rose gets all hyped up and promises Kai they'll be rooting for him through the monitor. The guy walks up to the little girl and tells her he'll finish this fast so they can finally play with the transformation. She vows to protect Rose with everything she's got, and Kai is so moved that he reaches out to stroke her cheek. The whole crowd gathers around to give the guy a massive hype goodbye as he heads out. Lately, Anna and Kai have become super close friends. When the qualifiers finally kick off, the organizer announces that only 4 people are making it to the finals, and if you get knocked out or step out of the ring, you're done. Kai looks around at the competition and realizes nobody is even on his level. but he's low-key worried he'll go too hard and get himself disqualified. Fly and Sigma were called up next, and since they'd already killed it on the main stage, they were the absolute favorites to win. Next up, they called out Rico Salvador, a student from the fencing school. Right as the announcer called out the last fighter, Ty's mind went straight to Rick. Next up, Kai himself gets called right into the arena. The host straight up asked if his power was the most useless thing in the world, and Kai just totally agreed. Two contestants stood up for the guy, calling out the host for being rude and telling her to stop trashing his gifts. Rick told the host he didn't need to apologize for just telling the truth, laughing as he thought about how that total loser should have been there to see it. The presenter quickly apologized for acting like a total jerk. The other guys just laughed in Rick's face, mocking him by saying his tongue was his only real weapon instead of a sword. The announcer shouts that the final qualifying round is starting, and Rick grabs his sword, ready to show everyone who laughed at him exactly what he's made of. Kai didn't even join the fight, since he was only focused on getting the result he wanted. Suddenly someone calls him out, and he acts like he just wandered too far by mistake, but it was actually a sneaky trick to win. Even with a sword aimed right at his head, Kai wasn't even thinking about the fight. He was just annoyed that his plan wasn't going perfectly. Kai suddenly ducks, and the sword aimed at his head slams right into another enemy who was just about to stab him. The guy starts screaming that it's all a setup to make them kill each other and get kicked out of the arena, but Kai doesn't even flinch. The whole crowd started freaking out, asking if that was even allowed. The smarter fighters were starting to realize Kai wasn't just some basic dude, and his moves were actually looking pretty weird. Rick suddenly lunges at him, yelling that he's gonna get wrecked, but Kai's mind is completely somewhere else. Kai catches the blade with just 2 fingers and warns them that a sword isn't a toy, because even a wooden one is still a real weapon. Kai realized this guy seriously needed a lesson in how to act right. Rick looked totally confused when his sword didn't even budge. Kai walks right past him, warning him he better be ready for the massive responsibility, while the guy grabs his sword in a blur and admits he was totally gonna get Kai disqualified until he changed his mind. They were ordered to stay down and watch the whole fight play out from below. He swung his wooden sword with insane speed, sending his enemies flying in every direction and leaving them looking totally clueless. Everything looked quiet from the outside, but a wild battle was already going down. The last 2 guys watched the madness in total shock, wondering if it was finally their turn to jump into the fight. Fly said it was a total shame his legs wouldn't move, but he knew for a fact that if he tried to take on Kai, he'd get absolutely wrecked. At the same time, our guy was totally wrecking his rivals and asked the announcer if the fight was finally over. We're down to just 4 fighters left in the arena. And it turns out the group was actually Kai, Rick, Sigma, and Fly. Fly announced he's hitting the final tournament just to lose on purpose, while Sigma figured their job was done, so he's giving up his license and heading home to report. Fly knew Kai was probably even stronger than his own master, but he had to show off his true spirit and hidden power to protect the Magic Institute's reputation. Right then, a massive squad of hunters was already marching through the woods. They slipped right past that massive cyclops without him even noticing. The hunters finally made it inside the temple and started hyping up their leader Riga, but Hook was the only one who stayed quiet and looked totally lost in thought. Out of nowhere, he says they should turn back because he's got a bad vibe, and Riga is totally shocked since they literally just got there. Riga scored a special pendant that hides his presence, letting him sneak right past monsters without them even noticing. This new guy says that with this pendant, even the craziest monsters won't notice you, and the best part is the whole squad can use it at once. Huki was super suspicious and asked why the guy didn't just use that insane item himself, but Riga told him the dude is basically a total noob when it comes to hunting. They reached a big hallway where the hunter got super hyped about finally winning, but Hook wasn't so sure they could keep sneaking around without getting caught. Suddenly, they spot this weird object and go to check it out, but even though Hook warns him it's probably a trap, Riga reaches out and touches it anyway. A massive mountain of treasure opened up right in front of Raga, and he was so blown away that he just wandered inside like he was in a trance. Inside, there were massive mountains of treasure everywhere. Everyone was totally blown away, but Hook was the only one who felt something was wrong, so as they stepped inside, he told them to drag Riga back. The hunters stared at their target with massive grins, hyped that they were finally millionaires and guaranteed to get that rank up. Out of nowhere, a massive boom rocked the sky and the ground started shaking, making the hunters back away in total terror. A beast wearing glasses poked its head out of the cave and shouted the hunters' names in a massive voice. They were totally terrified, and while Hook was screaming for them to run, Riga just stood there frozen, unable to believe what he was seeing. They suddenly bolted up and sprinted straight back to their army. That lion's massive head roared at them, trying to get them to scream back and hype him up. This massive lion steps out of the cave, revealing it's actually the evil army's major and his 3 beast knights who are ready to burn the whole world to the ground. They treated a weak local god like a farm animal and sacrificed it to bring back the dead, all just to pull Lady Tiamat into this world. That evil major finally decided to make his move and kick off his mission. This army of villains is totally obsessed with being bad, and they're trying to turn the whole world into a playground for monsters. Their only goal is to make everyone feel completely hopeless. He's standing there getting chewed out by his parents for wasting his talent, and they just can't understand why he'd ever turn down a trip to the capital. His family is totally broke, his parents are super sick, and his little brother and sister are still just tiny kids. He sprints into the fields crying his eyes out, worrying about what's going to happen to his family if he leaves for the capital. He's just chilling and looking out at the mountains when a voice suddenly catches him off guard from behind. Little Kai sneaks up from behind and tells him he totally knew he'd show up here. Kiss looks away and starts muttering to himself because he knows this girl can't keep a secret to save her life. Kai says his sister was looking for him and mentioned he just suddenly bolted from home. Kiss is super responsible and takes everything seriously, but he's always trying to handle every single problem all by himself. Kai says it's totally fine to ask for help when things get rough, but then someone suddenly yells that it's time to wake up. The girl with the black hair is going to be Kisa. She says they're going to hit Barzia right as the sun starts to set. This is Lena, and after she heard Kai was traveling with Mrs. Rose, she snuck out of the capital in secret just to find him. As Lena reads, Kiss is stressing about what excuse to use if the master catches them, but Lena doesn't even care, and just keeps yapping about how much Kai has grown and how he looks now. Kiss tells him he's definitely grown up, but he hopes he's still the same guy deep down, even after getting the world's worst gift and being hunted by everyone. Kids keeps telling himself that everything's going to be totally fine with Kai. Suddenly, a massive rumble and a loud crash shake the ground, and Kiss and Lena snap into high alert. Lena is strong enough to go head-to-head with Knight Commander Arnold, but even she's starting to shake with pure terror. Out of nowhere, another girl jumps in and flips the card over. Kesa just tosses it away like it's nothing. It grabs Lena right by the throat, but she just tells him she's not impressed at all. Lena looks over and spots Kiss just lying there on the ground right next to the horses. She glares at the random girl and demands to know how she had the nerve to pull a stunt like that. The girl just laughs, asking if Lena can even survive a single hit. Out of nowhere, another guy jumps in and yanks the mysterious woman away from Lena. She turns to Cheery and asks what his big plan is. Lena is absolutely terrified when she realizes that neither she nor Kiss have any way to stop these people. The guy stays totally chill and says if Lena gets messed up, the whole plan is ruined because she's the perfect bait to catch their prey. H screams his head off for the girl to let Lena go, but she just stares back like she doesn't care at all. Lena swallows her pride and begs them to spare Keech's life. The tall guy grabs him by the neck and is ready to snap, but the girl holds him back, saying he's still got a part to play and they need him alive. The strangers tell him to show up at Lord Vesper's estate in 8 days, and if he's even a second late, Kai and Lena are dead meat. Lena and Ketch lock eyes, knowing exactly what's up. This dude asks why everyone is trying to hunt Kai down. As she heads out, she tells Keech to warn Kai that if he's not there on time, Lena is definitely gonna pay the price. She's left wondering why they were even targeting Kai in the first place. The stranger explains the messed up things she's gonna do to the girl, and Kitch is totally freaked out. They just walk away and leave the guy sprawled out on the ground. Meanwhile, this guy Olga is riding in a carriage, stressing about the report he has to write for the investigation. Things got crazy in a mining town when a lord and an advisor started clashing because the advisor, who was one of Prince Gilbert's guys, was trying to illegally snatch the rights to the mines. But then, both sides were found dead, and this totally freaky, twisted monster was standing right there at the scene. The monster is dead and the case is shut, but things are still way too sketchy. So an A-rank hunter is stepping in to see what's really going on. By the time Olga got to the spot, there wasn't a single clue left behind. Olga noticed these incidents were happening way more often lately, and he had a total gut feeling that something was wrong. The carriage suddenly jerks to a stop, and the driver yells for Olga while pointing ahead, where the guy sees Kisa collapsed on the ground and asks if he's okay. Olga leaps off the cart and rushes to Kiss, who's barely managing to push himself up on his elbows. The hunter helped the kid up and led him to the cart, asking what went down, and the boy told him the worst news. Lena had been kidnapped. Once they're in the carriage, he tells them about those two creeps who threatened to turn Lena into a chimera if Kai doesn't show up. The second Olga heard about that chimera, her mind started racing. Keith kept saying he was totally powerless, but he was desperate to save Lena, while Kai was also in huge trouble. Kiss was stuck with a brutal choice between Lena and Kai Yan, but since they were both his childhood best friends, he just couldn't bring himself to pick one. Keith remembered Kai's advice that asking for help isn't embarrassing, so he finally called for backup to save his friends. Olga patted his shoulder and told him he knew someone who could easily take these guys out. Keith asked Olga to talk to the guy for him, and she agreed, but she told him he'd have to explain his own mess once they got to the guild, so she ordered the driver to step on it. Olga had one catch, and Kiss promised he'd do anything to save them both, so she told him he just had to trust Kai no matter what. Kiss saw Kai as his big brother, and he knew a little bro should always trust his older sibling no matter what. They finally get to the spot, but the girl at the front desk says the master is out at the admin office, so she tells the crew to just hang out and wait since he'll. Olga thanked the girl and told Kiz he'd have to wait, while the receptionist mentioned Kai totally trashed the cards and the master was busy dealing with the mess. To kill some time, the crew headed to a bar where they met a girl who knew Olga and was super hyped to see him. The hunter asked to tag along, so the girl just smiled and started spilling the tea about Mia, whose boyfriend ghosted her and left her feeling totally disrespected. Kiss was stressing out, but Olga told him to chill because if they went chasing after the master, they'd probably just end up missing each other. She slid some food his way to cheer him up and told him to just talk to her, because going straight to the master is a massive deal. Suddenly, Ryga and Hook burst into the room, screaming that something insane just happened and they need to call the master right now. A girl rushes up to tell them the master is gone, and Rega groans that he picked the absolute worst time to be missing.